We're live. It is the pre-show, everyone, for the Security Plus study group for July 2020. Hi, everybody. Hello, chat room. Hello, everyone. We're in the midst of getting ready. We'll start in about 9 minutes. Just a few seconds behind today, aren't I? We're getting there. Let's see if we got recordings going here, recordings going here. We've got this set up there. That cameras look good. Okay. I think we might be ready. Is this being recorded? Yes, they are all recorded. The replay of this will be available immediately afterwards and will be added to the YouTube playlists and the replays on my website. You can go back years and watch previous study groups. Absolutely. Because a lot of people aren't able to make the live stream. They like to watch afterwards, which is good too. We've got plenty to go through today. Today is all Security Plus. We're doing Security Plus, all Q&A from the SY0-501 exam. And I've got other details on here. I should probably get ready for the inevitable questions about the 601. So I might as well get some things up on the screen to get ready for that. Where did I put those videos? Where is that content? Where are those things? Why can I not hear myself in my headphones? There we go. We'll get that ready to go. Just in case. Just in case. We got some content there. All right. Very, very nice. Very good. We have about 7.5 minutes to go. We will be starting today in the first hour with Q&A. I'll be asking you questions. And then in the second hour, I open up the phone lines and you can ask me questions. So we got a little bit of that too. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's how we usually do things, with a little this and a little that. We've got all kinds of different things going on around here. I've been spending most of my time writing Q&A, not for Security Plus, for some other thit, but I have been working on more Security Plus content for the new exam that's due to be released in November. We'll talk a little bit about that in the first few minutes. Get that going. And then we'll talk about, I'm sure in the after show people want to ask questions about what they take, which one. I'll give an overview first thing, and then we'll probably break it down in the after show. We got about 6 minutes before we get started, 6.5. Get those things going. I've got plenty here. Welcome, chat room. Good to have you here. I'll always keep this up. Always watch the chat room going by as we are doing this. Do I have power? Yes, I do. Videos look good. Okay. I like it. I like it. I need one more camera in here. I have 8 inputs and I'm only using 6. I'm really only using 4. I need one more, don't I? I need to set up another camera. I think I have a camera I could set up for this now that I'm thinking about it. There's always something. I was thinking having one up high or maybe one that's a broader view. I don't know. I got to work on that. There's always something. Something to work on. Thanks, chat room. Thanks for being here. Got folks checking in. I should probably make this so I can actually see the stream health. That would be good. Very good. Why is this always constantly moving? There we are. Some of you taking a lot of Security Plus. A lot of people in the chat room getting ready to take Security Plus. So this will be a good overview before you walk into that exam room. Get all of those things ready to go. All right. That is my Singer's Serious Cinnamon Spray. Me. Maybe not singing, but it is Singer's. That's the brand. I guess it's really, is it Singer's is the brand? And it's for singers, made by singers, made by herbs, etc. That's what it's made by. Singer's Saving Grace is the product trademark. So it is a Singer's product. product for singers, for singing. We've got a lot going on here. I'm glad we were able to get through this today. It's been, we're obviously here in Florida. I mention that occasionally. And it's the summer in Florida, and we get massive storms coming through every afternoon, it seems, these days. So I'm glad we're doing this right now before the storms start. Are we able to get CEUs? Yes, you will. There'll be one sometime in this first hour. I'll talk all about how you can earn a continuing education unit credit, and specifically for CompTIA, the webinar category. The webinar category. And get those things. Plenty to discuss. What else do we have here? This needs to be on this slide. I think that's good. What is a CEU? Well, if you don't know what a CEU is, it's not that important for you. But if you are someone who already has earned a certification and you want to renew your certification, one way to do it is the continuing education unit credit. One of the things that a lot of people will do is accumulate those CEUs, and they'll turn those in and get renewed. But not everybody does that. In fact, fewer and fewer people are doing that these days. I think people are doing other things to renew their certification. Some of those things you can renew. Some of these things you have to pay, some you don't. I've got a video that I did on this called How to Renew Your Certification in Just a Few Hours. Go out to YouTube, search for that. You'll see it. I should really put links for those in the video descriptions. Then they would just be there, and I could say, oh, just look in the video descriptions right there. But I haven't done that. I'll have to figure that out. Get all of those things. And it's a different amount depending on what you renew with. Some ways to renew don't require a maintenance fee. Some require a maintenance fee. The maintenance fees are different depending on what certifications you have earned. So that type of thing. So to answer the question, though, somewhere in this first hour, I will be giving you instructions on how you can earn 1 hour of webinar category CEU. So there you go. You don't generally use, you don't renew multiple certifications with the CEUs or any other method. You always renew the highest level certification. So if you have A+ and Network Plus and Security Plus, all you concentrate on is renewing Security Plus. And when you renew Security Plus, your lower level certifications are renewed automatically. So that's what that's about. How are we on time? Minute and a half. We're getting ready to do this thing. Plenty of Q&A. We'll get this going. I think this is good. I moved around cameras. I was doing all kinds of camera work this week. So I moved a bunch of cameras around and moved them back, and I don't know if they're in the right place. This one's a little bit tighter than I think I usually kept it, which I think is okay. I think it looks all right. The other one, I'm not sure if I got the right height, but if I hate it, I will change it after this is done. We will figure it out for all of those things. Okay, less than a minute to go. Let's check our levels. That's good. This is good. You know what I don't have here is Skype. I don't have Skype up. I need Skype in the second hour. So might as well get that up and running. There it is. Boop. All right, perfect. And what else? The rest of this we're in pretty good shape. Will I be showing? Yes, I will be showing my screen. This is the pre-show. We're about ready to go. 15 seconds, and we'll be done with this pre-show. You'll actually see real things. You don't get to look at the back of my head the whole time, thankfully. There's an actual show we do. And I think it's about time for that. We'll do Security Plus. Stand by, everybody, and let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the July 2020 Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group, coming to you from our world headquarters here at Messer Studios. Thanks for joining us. If you're here live, thanks for being here live, chat room. We've got plenty of interactive things that we're able to do live. If you're watching this on the replay, you can still stick around and learn all the things that you need to learn. Follow along with us. You won't be able to answer the questions live and online, but you will be able to answer questions. So that part is always going to be available for you. I'll give you instructions in a moment on how you can do this. In fact, I think I've got them right here. There we go. So if you'd like to follow along, if you're watching this live, pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. There'll be a question waiting for you right there in that window. Be able to take advantage of that. If you are not watching this live, if this is a replay, then you won't be able to do this. Just letting you know, there won't be a question there. So don't do that if you're on the replay. But here live, professormesser.com/QA. There's also an app that you can get for your mobile device. The app is called the Socrative Student app. Socrative Student app is what you want. It will ask you for a room name. That room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER, all one word, spelled just like that. You have to spell it right. And if you do all of those things the right way, then there will be a question waiting for you. And that question asks, a website owner would like to provide a method for users to verify downloaded files. Which of the following would be the best choice for this requirement? Would it be AES, MD5, ECB, Blowfish, or Diffie-Hellman? So there's your 5 options. The rules are you cannot put answers in the chat room. You also don't put any hints in the chat room. You simply visit professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer, and we will come back to that in just a moment. Stand by. We are going to first tell you all about what's happening here. Of course, if you are familiar with our training classes, you know they are all on YouTube. You can find every minute of every video out on the YouTube at professormesser.com/YouTube. Don't forget about our weekly Security Plus question, our pop quiz question that we send out over email, over Twitter, over Instagram. Simply visit professormesser.com/Twitter or professormesser.com/Instagram, and you can learn about what questions I've asked this week. The next one will be tomorrow. So every Thursday, you get a new Security Plus question. Let's talk about Security Plus because a number of things have happened since we had a study group a month ago. We have new news. I guess news is new. We have new things to tell you about with Security Plus. First, the current version of Security Plus is the SY0-501. That's the version of the test that is currently available that you have to pass to earn your Security Plus certification. That's an exam that was released on October the 4th of 2017. And CompTIA, last week or so, announced that they will be retiring that exam in July of 2021. So as we watch this live, you've got a year before this certification version of SY0-501 goes away. So my recommendation for you, if you are working right now on this SY0-501 on Security Plus, what you want to do is keep studying and take this version of the exam because it will still be around for another year. There is a new version of the exam coming out. It will be called, rather predictably, the SY0-601. That is the new version. It will be available in November. So as we sit here in July of 2020, we've got a number of months before that particular version appears. And those exam objectives are now available. So if you wanted to see what the differences are in those two exams, you're welcome to do so. Now, I have already done that. I've gone through the process of trying to understand exactly what is on the new exam, what has been removed from the current exam, what has been added to the new exam. I did a complete diff between both of those. So I know exactly what the differences are, and we've already started working on content for the SY0-601. So there will be a training series for the SY0-601. Of course there will. But there's a lot that is different between the two. So I had to create an entire video of all these differences and all my recommendations. So if you go out to professormesser.com/YouTube, you'll see a video on why I tell you do not wait for the SY0-601. Inevitably, when these new versions come out, people say, well, wait, I want to take the new version. I'm going to wait until November and take the new version. And I did a video that explains to you why that's not a good idea. It sounds like a good idea. It is not a good idea. So when you get a chance after this is over, go over to my YouTube channel, watch that video on why you should not wait for the SY0-601. Now, I'll also tell you in that video when you should take the SY0-601. So it's there's a little more to it, than what I'm telling you. But we can talk in the after show if you want more details on that. There's plenty of info in there. Whether you take the SY0-501 or 601, it's a single exam you take. You pass that single exam. It's 90 minutes long. That's how much time you get. You can get up to 90 questions, a maximum. You might get fewer than 90 questions. The passing score is on a scale from 100 to 900, and you have to get at least a 750. It's an odd scoring setup, isn't it? But there it is. The scoring process, you really don't get much insight. You just have to do as well as you can on the exam and hope that you get over a 750. The exam itself is a combination of multiple choice questions and performance-based questions. So it's not quite answering A, B, C, or D all the way through. There are a handful of questions at the beginning that are performance-based, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. I'll also let you know that on my Security Plus videos, there's so much content. There are hundreds of videos for Security Plus that you would have to go through. That is an extensive amount of content. And one of the things that I recommend for you is that you take a lot of notes. But with 100 or over 100 videos and just so much content, you may not be able to get through every video or be able to look at everything that happens to be in every video. Certainly taking notes on every video can be a challenge. So one of the things I did was create a series of course notes that allows you to have all of my content all in one place. And these course notes are available. I think I've got them right here. There they are. The course notes are in a PDF format, so you can get access to them immediately. And they go through every single video. And I've got documentation of everything that was in that video, all of the charts that were in that video, all of the explanations of how things work that are in that video. They are all in these course notes. It's a great way to have access to everything that I have in this video. You can just have it all available to you. So kind of nice to have access to all of that information. And it's one that is relatively inexpensive as well. Every dollar from this goes back to support the website. This digital version is available and a physical version. So it's a physical version of the book. So you can have it on your phone, on your tablet. And if you buy the physical version, you get the digital version for free. So you get a little bit of everything. And as I mentioned, every bit of this goes back to support what we do here. It's another way to help show your appreciation for those free videos as well. So have a look at that. The link, if you want to learn more, is at professormesser.com/securitycn. That's professormesser.com/security course notes, security CN. That's what that CN is for the course notes. Also want to let you know, if you want to help support us, if you're an Amazon purchaser, you can visit our website before you go to Amazon. Go to professormesser.com/Amazon, and you'll be able to click that link. You'll pay exactly the same low price you've always paid at Amazon, but they give us a little bit of a commission. Those little commissions add up over time, help keep the lights on. So if you're an Amazon purchaser, visit our website first before buying things out on Amazon.com. Also let you know there's some free things available on the website. I've got out on my website a number of different things to look through that are free, Q&A, that are really some archives from these study groups that I put into an online set of questions and answers. You'll find these 10 question tests at professormesser.com/take10. It's my Take 10 challenge. And you can take these 10 question sample exams right there at professormesser.com/take10. And for the first 2 Security Plus exams, I have posted companion videos with them. So you can go through the Take 10 challenge and then watch the video to see, did I get it right? If I did get it right, why? And if I got it wrong, why did I get it wrong? So I've got a few things there as well. Feel free to have a look at that at professormesser.com/take10. Also let you know that this entire study group is available on a video replay minutes after we're done. I hit the end button, YouTube processes the video, and it's available for you to watch immediately, effectively. There's also an audio version of this that I make available on my website in podcast form. You go to professormesser.com/podcast to learn about how you can do that. Don't forget about the YouTube video that is out there. That is the replay available. And about a day later, after my marketing manager, Lori, sits through this entire thing and listens and watches this, she puts timestamps in the YouTube video description. Hi, Lori. And if you are in the chat room, Lori reads the chat since they're going by too. So say hello to Lori, everybody. This is really nice because now YouTube puts in separations down on the bar across the bottom of the video so you can see exactly where the questions and the answers are, which I think is really nice. We've been doing this for years, and now YouTube has suddenly added this new feature, and this comes in really handy. So a very nice thing to have available. So about a day later, Lori goes through the entire thing and puts those timestamps. Becomes really useful later on if you need to find something very, very quickly. You can find that at professormesser.com/YouTube. Let's go back to that question I asked earlier, which was a website owner would like to provide a method for users to verify downloaded files. Which of the following would be the best choice for this requirement? Would it be AES, MD5, ECB, Blowfish, or Diffie-Hellman? And if we click the how do we do, 65% of you say it's MD5. We had 16% that said it's AES, 10% Diffie-Hellman, and single digits down at ECB and Blowfish. Now, reason I think most people chose MD5 is maybe they may have been here last month when we did this rewind question. But of course, MD5 is a hashing algorithm. And if you want to check to see if you have received a document that's exactly the same as what was originally sent, you can simply compare the hashes before it's sent with a hash after it's sent and be able to understand that. And of course, MD5 is a message digest 5. That's a hashing algorithm. We don't use much of MD5 any longer for any highly secure reasons, but it does make a nice little utility, a nice hashing algorithm, just to check to see if a file is exactly what was sent from one side to the other. Generally, we use other hashing algorithms these days to do that on other types of systems, but pretty nice to have that functionality for MD5. All of the other options here, AES, Blowfish, ECB, are methods of encryption, whether they are encryption of blocks, like electronic codebook, or encryption mechanisms you may recognize, like AES, like you might find on a wireless network. Diffie-Hellman is a key exchange algorithm, not quite the same as a hash, not quite the same as encryption, but it certainly is not used to verify downloaded files. The only option here is indeed MD5. 66% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Some of you must have remembered that from last month. Well, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that on your exam, there will be questions at the beginning of the exam, usually about a handful of questions, that are not multiple choice. They are anything but multiple choice. CompTIA calls these performance-based questions. These performance-based questions can be questions that are drag and drop. They can be questions that are asking you to put things in a particular order from highest to lowest, fastest to slowest. They might have matching questions. You have to match things up. Just depends on exactly how that's going to work. But the whole system behind that is one that is meant to really see if you understand the topics from the exam objectives. It's just another way to ask you questions about the same content. So what I have as the very first new question of every study group is a performance-based question. And the performance-based question today is a special request because some of you said, I want more performance-based questions that talk about doing something that is at the command line. Not all of the performance-based questions are simulations. A lot of people tend to think that, but it's not actually the case. So what I have for you is actually a simulation performance-based question. So we're going to see how things are on the performance-based questions and see if you can see some of these things. Here is your, and you may want to pop open to a command prompt on your own computer and try this out. Remember, no answering in the chat room. Here is your performance-based question of the month. It asks, a network administrator is troubleshooting a problem with users browsing to www.example.com. Use a command line utility to confirm the IP address of this website. That's all you get. So what would you type in at the command prompt? The entire command at the command prompt to be able to confirm the IP address of this website. And this is an interesting one because some commands will use an IP address, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to confirm some of the IP address information from this website. What would be the best command line utility to use? It doesn't matter if it's Windows or Linux. to be able to do this. In fact, I've got some answers I will give you will apply to both Windows or Linux to do this. So this is the real key, is what you would use. In fact, I would say there's at least 2 answers to this, and I'll give you a half an answer for another one. So let's say there's 2.5 answers that I know off the top of my head that people will probably want to use on this. There's many more that you could use, but I think that many of you will, of course, be very familiar with this. Whenever you start getting into the details of this and understanding what you would want to do, this does become a little bit more challenging because there's different programs to use for different operating systems. So feel free to go through this and see if you can know and remember exactly how to break this down. I think some of you might know how. I'm watching the answers come in on my screen. I'm not showing them so we don't spoil any of this that's coming through, but I'm watching these as we come in on this side. We'll figure out what's there. So a network administrator is troubleshooting a problem with users browsing to www.example.com. Use a command line utility to confirm the IP address of this website. And I will absolutely show you how to do this in just a moment. We'll pop open a browser window, and first we'll see what other people are saying on here. Most everybody's doing this, and it's interesting what the different answer is that comes in. We'll have a look at what those might be. I think that's, whenever I start going through and understanding this is really becomes very useful. So I think you'll end up using this functionality a lot when you start using it. So let's have a look to break this down. I've got one, I'll just bring up on my screen, be able to see exactly what's here with these. So I like the answers whenever I start going through and doing this at the command line. I'm going to bring up a separate window here so we see this. And I think one of the things I like to do with this is we're looking at the answers, be able to get an understanding of this. I think this is one. I'll bring this up in a moment so you can see all of these. Let's have a look at this answer. So I'll bring you up to my command prompt. Now this is kind of small, but this is, I'll zoom up a little bit so we can at least see some of these things coming through and break this down. Whenever I start trying to break these down and understanding what the differences are, you'll be able to break these, really break these down into detail and see what's happening. So let's zoom up. Whenever I want to see what IP address is associated with any type of URL, or the reverse, maybe you have an IP address and you'd like to see what it will resolve to, we need to do some type of query to a name server. So that's the key, at least that's the intention of this particular question, was how do I do some type of what we call name resolution between www.example.com and what our domain name server thinks the IP address is of www.example.com. So here's where we really break this down, is we go to NSLOOKUP www.example.com. And it goes out to, in my case, it goes out to the name server that I'm using as my primary name server, which is Quad 9. And it gives me an answer that says www.example.com, which is not a real IP, not a real address, but it's used for examples, is 93.184.216.34. And there's our basic answer. We've got at least a breakdown of how to work through those things. So whenever I look and try to figure out how I can make that conversion between a name and an IP address, that's one of the best ways to do it. So that's an easy one. So another one that you might want to use, as people were trying to mention in the chat room, what operating system do I use? Because you'll notice if you're in Windows, this NSLOOKUP command works great. But if you're in Windows and use dig www.example.com, here on my Mac OS device, notice it gives me a lot more information. Dig is a much more explanatory and in many cases more functional way to do name service updates. You'll notice the result was the same. We got 93.184.216.34, but you'll notice that it presents it to us in the same format as the record on the DNS server. And I think that's why many people really do like to have that particular functionality. It tells us exactly how long it took, what server it went to. We got more detail there. I think that's one of the reasons many people like the dig. They dig because of that very same reason. Now, that is the best answer, by the way, for this particular question. Other people are mentioning other things that you could use, like a ping, like a trace route. But what that is a program running yet another utility that behind the scenes has performed a name resolution to hopefully retrieve an IP address and show that to you. But you don't know what happened behind the scenes on the name server, sort of guessing that it's pulling the right thing. And what if there are other pieces of information you would like to grab from this domain, like a mail exchange information, so you know where their mail server is? What if there are aliases associated with this and you would like to reverse this? For instance, we know what this IP address is that we got for this. Let's perform a dig on the IP address. And notice that we get a breakdown of where the particular name server is that handles this particular IP address. So we did exactly the same thing except in reverse, a reverse lookup to be able to use this. Now, NS lookup, as many people mentioned, is being removed from many different distributions. But although that's the case, it's still available to use. In fact, if you're in Windows, NS lookup is right there. We use NS lookup all the time. It's very functional. It's a perfectly valid utility to use. And although many people are dig snobs, I get it. Dig is a very functional program, and many people should use this. Dig is not available by default on a Windows machine. Now, if you want to stick around for the after show and people are interested in that, I can tell you how you can install dig on your Windows machine. So you get the best of both worlds. You get NS lookup and you get dig. So you've got some choices there to go through if you're looking at this. That is the right solution to me, is to use either dig or NS lookup with the name of that particular device, www.example.com. That is exactly where you would go to get that. So that's the perfect example to me. Now, if you used ping, one of the things that you would get, in fact, let's go back to this since some people brought this up. If you used ping www.example.com, what you're seeing are the IP addresses that were resolved from that ping command, 93.184.216.34. Hey, that's the same thing as the IP address we got originally. But you're missing the actual name resolution that took place behind the scenes. You don't get to see that. In fact, if this had changed on the name server, you won't see that because you're looking at a cached version of it, which is why this is not the best utility to use. Don't use a utility that uses the IP address or the name resolution from your cache. Use the utility that goes out to your name server, queries the name server directly, and you get the immediate response of what it is there. So your answers you have two answers here that are perfectly valid. One in it is NS lookup and one is dig. So you've got a couple of the ones that you could break through. And I think both of those are pretty good to have this. Whenever I start breaking down what the different options are, you'll be able to see as you go through the exam, these answers will jump out at you. And I would not expect you to get a lot of command line questions on the exam, but it can come in handy if you're somebody who's going to be working through that, to be able to see what those commands happen to be. And boy, it comes in handy. So stick around for the after show. If somebody wants to see how you would install dig on your Windows machine, maybe I can pop open a VM that I have here and we could try it out. The real key for you is NS lookup or dig. Ping may or may not give you the same response depending on if things have changed on the name server recently. So that's where I would focus to be able to do that. Have a look at those options. I think those are pretty good if you're someone who wants to work through those. Well, that's your performance-based question of the month. Now you've become an expert on dig. You've become an expert on NS lookup. Now you can use that utility to find all of the different IP addresses and or names associated with IP addresses, to have those there as well. A great utility to have available. Let's change our pace a little bit and do some multiple choice questions. So here is the next question on our list, and it asks, which of the following would be the least volatile? Would it be a CPU register, a file in the temp folder, an application executable file, a network topology, or an ARP table? Which of the following would be the least volatile? Would it be a CPU register, a file in the temp folder, an application executable file, a network topology, or an ARP table? If you think you know the answer, remember, no answering in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. You want to go to professormusser.com/QA and put your answer in right there. Lock it in, A, B, C, D, or E, and we will come back and look at the answers to those in just a moment. So somebody in the chat room said, do you think it'd be better to install WSL with Linux for commands like dig? No, I think you just install dig in Windows and you'd be fine. I think that's all you need. Now, the utility dig, there's nothing special about it that only makes it run in Linux or only makes it run in Mac OS. There is indeed a Windows version of it. You can install it. It runs fantastic. That's my recommendation, to have those things there. If you ever start trying to figure out the details, that's where that comes from. Finding utilities that have been written for Windows can sometimes be problematic because Windows does have some limitations as to what you are able to do at the command line, especially as it is associated with networking utilities, capturing packets, modifying how packets are constructed. Some of these things are very difficult to really work with Windows on. There are intentional restrictions that are put there as security controls in Windows that you don't have in other operating systems necessarily. But dig is one of those you can absolutely have in Windows, and you can install it in Windows. You can install it right now, or I'll show you how at the end of the study group. We'll try it ourselves and see if it works. It should. I think I remember the process of doing it. We will find it. It's not that difficult. There's just a download for an executable. You run the setup program, and you're off to the races. It's really that simple. It's like anything else in Windows. You find the right install program, you're able to do that very easily and break those down. Let's have a look at this question, though. Which of the following would be the least volatile? Would it be a CPU register, a file in the temp folder, an application executable file, a network topology, or an ARP table? Let's see what you answered on this one, and then we'll figure out why. Well, we're all over the place. We've got a mixture of things, but if we go with the top on our list, 33% of you, a third of you, said network topology. 24% of you said an application executable file. 17% said CPU register. 15% said a file in the temp folder. Those are pretty much identical. Those are tied. And then last 10% of you said an ARP table. So let's talk about volatility. If something is volatile, you ever hear of somebody having a volatile chemical? It's a chemical that could explode or disappear or blow up at any moment. It's something that's going to disappear quickly. If something that is volatile is going to disappear quickly. So something that is the least volatile is something that would not disappear quickly. It's something that's going to stick around for a while. So this question is effectively saying which one of these things is going to be around the longest. And that way we can figure those things out. There's a table in my video in section 5.5 called Gathering Forensics Data, where I have a chart showing the most volatile to the least volatile, so you can really break down what those differences are. The thing that's probably around the least amount of time, the most volatile, are things like CPU registers and CPU caches. They're instantaneous, then they're gone. They're processed in the CPU, off they go to be able to do that. And then you start going down the list. Things that would be around a little bit longer than a CPU register might be a router table, an ARP cache, kernel statistics, or memory. If you want something that sticks around a little longer, a temporary file system might stick around a little longer. And then we go longer and longer and longer, things that are around for a longer amount of time. The idea here, of course, is that if you're in the position where there has been an event, a security breach, a security event, to add those things there, then you want to make sure you gather the evidence that's here now, especially if that evidence may be gone in a moment. So we should probably start at the top of this list and gather as much of this information as we can. You'll notice near the bottom are things like network topologies, physical configurations, and lastly, probably the least volatile of all, are things like archival media. We've made a backup. We've sent that backup off-site. We're going to keep it at that off-site for 3 years, whatever the amount of time you keep backups for. That's going to be around a very long time. So now we have to look at our list. We have effectively got a list of things that match this table. Which one of those is at the bottom of this table? The one that is the least volatile is the network topology. If you answer D, network topology, 34% of you answered that one. That is the right answer. That's the one in the list of these 5 things that would be around for the longest amount of time. So very useful to have that there. Things that would be around the least amount of time, which would be the most volatile, would be a CPU register, for example. A file in the temp folder, application executable files, and ARP tables are all around for much fewer times than would be a network topology. Network topologies don't change very often. A network topology might stay the same for years before anything changes with it. So it is really something that is not very volatile at all to have. Now you can imagine when I was shooting this video, I was saying volatile, volatile, volatile. It's volatile. Volatile. So that's why in this list of 5 things, network topology definitely fits as the one that would be around the longest. 34% of you answered network topology, and that is the right answer. Well done with that. And we've got the list here, so if you ever want to refer back to that, it is in that list of items. So you can always go back to that table of the volatility and understand which things will be around the least amount of time and the most amount of the time and be able to figure out those details. That is exactly what you should do. I would not fit an application executable file into the same category as an archival media because an application executable file is something that's right there on my computer and it can be deleted at any moment. It's not a backup. It's not an archive. So it would not, I would say that would fit as a file on disk. Sure, that would make sense. That's where I would put that particular item, an application executable file, spreadsheet, a presentation, a video. Those are files that are on disk. That makes sense to me. That's where I would put them in that list as well. Very nice to have that there. So if you did choose D, network topology, you got that one absolutely right. Let's do another one. We got plenty of time for more questions. Let's fit a lot more of these in. The next question on the list says, which of the following certificate formats would be the best choice to send as an email message? Which of the following certificate formats would be the best choice to send as an email message? Would it be DER, RSA, PKCS number 12, MD5, or PIM? Which of the following certificate formats would be the best choice to send as an email message? Would it be DER, RSA, PKCS number 12, MD5, or PEM? If you think you know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. You want to go right here to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Do you remember certificate formats? Certificate formats, by the way, are practically unchanged between the 501 and 601. So this is one of those topics that is the same across both of them. And this is a topic, by the way, that you'll end up needing to know because as items move through email services, things can change, especially if it's a file that is susceptible to change. I guess that's really the only hint I can give you on this one. We'll figure out the details on the rest of that. So we need to find some format that emails well. There's your guess. So which of the following certificate formats would be the best choice to send as an email message? Is the added material between the 501 and 601 as big as the 401 501? Probably about the same additions. We could probably look at the raw numbers when we get into the after show. But it is a significant amount of material that it was added to the 601. So I was hoping it'd be like a 20% change. Oh, no. No. It's much bigger. Much, much, much bigger than that. So I think 50% of the 601 is all new material, and it's bigger on top of that. So that's a big difference in those. It's almost like I'm creating 65% of the exam is brand new. So I'm effectively creating so much more information for this new series. Yeah, it's a big one. And that's why I mentioned earlier, if you're thinking about getting this exam, get it now. Get the 501. Make it easier on yourself. Let's see how you did with this one. Which of the following certificate formats would be the best choice to send as an email message? Would it be DER, RSA, PKCS number 12, MD5, or PEM? This is another one we're a little torn on, aren't we? So 33% of us say PEM. That is our 1/3 winner. We've got 27% of us that say PKCS number 12 would be the best choice. 22% of you say RSA. Then you've got 10% with MD5 and 8% with the DER. Well, I guess one of the challenges here is that you've got these formats to choose from. Only 3 of them on this list are actual certificate formats. So there's where you can start, is that the DER, PKCS number 12, and PEM are certificate formats. So already you should be able to throw out these 2 things. RSA is not a certificate format. MD5, we just talked about MD5. So that's why only 10% of you said, yeah, it can't be MD5. That's a hashing algorithm. RSA is used for many different things. Key exchange, some encryption, certainly valuable, but not a certificate format. So between DER, PKCS number 12, and PEM, only one of those is an ASCII format, or a format that's in character form that a human being could read. It's not a binary format that would be sent. And the only one in those 3 is, if you know the name, if you know what PEM stands for, it stands for Privacy Enhanced Mail. It's in the name of the actual format. That's the real key. So it's base 64 encoded. This is a picture of the certificate from my machine. So I don't know what the certificate is of. Maybe I just did one as an example. But that is what it looks like. So you can, even though it's not a readable, it doesn't have words in it, but you can view it. A human being can look at that and go, MIICLDCCA, lowercase d, uppercase K, GAW. You can read it. And as you send things through email, things that are in this format of ASCII characters is not susceptible to email servers that tend to change binary attachments with these. So this privacy enhanced mail format is perfect for email because we can really expect that it's not going to be modified along the way. This is a really good one to use if you're emailing this out to someone outside of your organization. You don't have control over the email servers between point A and point B. You don't know how the email servers in different countries might modify some of the information inside of an email. If you use this format, it's going to get to the other side just fine. So PEM is the right one to use. And that's why if you chose PEM, 33% of you got that one absolutely correct. So that's what you should use as well. If you're ever trying to break this out and figure out the details of that, that makes sense to me too. That's what I would recommend that you use. Whenever I start looking at the different options, you should be able to break out from here. Oh, there's DER. I recognize that. There's PKCS number 12. I recognize that. So if you recognize them, you should be able now to understand, what are those? Are those useful? Can I take advantage of those, or at least the knowledge of those, to know that that's a binary format? And if so, you should be able to break those down. There's not much difference between these formats, by the way. They're really just a way of putting a certificate into a package that I can send to you. That's all this is. So there's nothing really to explain about PKCS number 12 or DER. I do in my video, the video is right here, in section 6.4 under certificate file formats, that's the video. I go through each one of those and I at least explain, here's where you would see those formats the most. So you can at least break them down that way. That might help a little bit if you're trying to figure out the details of this. So that's what I would recommend you do as well, is have a look at all of those pieces. I'll put the right thing on the screen for you. You guys did pretty good on this though, because not knowing what the formats are, you kind of have to take a guess. And the plurality of you, most of you chose PEM as the right answer. If you answered E, that is the right answer. Congratulations. Well done with that. Well, you'll notice the questions that we're seeing here are written in a certain way. They use the term best, or what is the thing you do first, or what is the most thing that you should do. The Security Plus exam, probably more so, I would say definitely more so than the A Plus or Network Plus, has some very involved questions. There are some very unique methods of asking questions on this exam. So one of the things I wanted to do is I was looking at the different things available, especially sample questions that were available. I found that a lot of the sample questions that people were using, they just weren't very good. They didn't really demonstrate or allow you to really understand what the differences are, how the exam was asked, how it sounded, how the voice of the exam was. So I wrote an entire book, 3 full practice exams, which include multiple choice and performance-based questions that give you the same feel. They're not the same questions. I wrote all these questions originally, but they have the same feel and style, and I think the same difficulty level as the Security Plus exam. I strive to do that with this particular grouping of questions. Let me give you an idea of what this looks like. It's better to show you. So here is my practice exam book. Here's the first multiple choice exam. You've hired a third party to gather information about your company's servers and data. The third party will not have direct access to your internal network, but can gather information from any other source. Which of the following would best describe this approach? Would it be backdoor testing, passive reconnaissance, OS fingerprinting, or gray box penetration testing? Now, in the PDF, you could simply write down what you think the answer is and come back to it later, or you can click either the quick answer, which tells you exactly what it is, or the details. I'm going to click that, which takes you to the back of the book. It jumps you there automatically. You get the same question, and you can see that the answer is B, passive reconnaissance, and I explained to you why that is the right answer, which I think is useful. But if you're like me, you didn't get the right answer. You answered something else. You may have answered OS fingerprinting. And one of the things I do in this book, every single wrong answer, I explain to you why the answer was wrong. So you've got an opportunity to learn from this, whether you get it right or whether you get it wrong. In many ways, I think you learn more if you get it wrong, because then you can start to understand where you missed it on that one. Another thing I do, and this is very unique, you won't see this in any other Q&A book, is at the bottom of this list, I tell you exactly what video that particular topic is from. I put a link to it, and it's an active link. You just click on it in the PDF, and it will take you to my website. And there's a QR code. If you got your phone available, pop open the camera right now. You don't take a picture. You don't have to actually take a picture. Just point your camera at the QR code on your screen, and it will bring up the prompt to the video and will take you there on your phone so you can watch the video that's associated with this. Now, if you want to go to the next question, in my browser, I can use Command back bracket to go back to where I started and then go to question number 7 and go to the next one. So I can step through them one at a time if I want to do this. It's a very unique combination of so many different things that I think adds a lot of value to the study process. It's the questions and answers I wish I had when I was studying for my Security Plus. If you want to know more about this, you can find out at professormesser.com/securitype. That's for security practice exams. You can find all of that on the Professor Messer website. Let's do another Q&A. I've got more here. Next on our list is a question that asks, which of the following would best describe malware that resides on a user's computer and proxies all incoming and outgoing traffic? Would that be a DOS? Would it be a man in the browser? Would it be a replay attack? Would it be spoofing, or would it be phishing? Which of the following would best describe malware that resides on a user's computer and proxies all incoming and outgoing traffic? Is it a DOS, a man in the browser, a replay attack, spoofing, or phishing? You think you know the answer? Visit professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what it is. It comes at the very beginning of the entire course. So if you've gotten through at least the first section of my videos, then this will be something that probably you're pretty good shape with. I think this is one where I would remember this one because it was at the beginning. If you ever look at the stats for my courses, there are a lot of people that start, and then as you go through the video series, a lot of people drop off. So right there at the beginning, I think I've hit a lot of people right now that have gone through this and have figured those things out. So make sure you go through this as well to figure that out. Whenever I start trying to break these out and trying to figure out what the differences are, this is where I would go. I would figure out these pieces too. Let's see if you happen to know what this is. Whenever I go through and try to understand this, maybe throwing out things you already knew. Have we talked about any of these so far? You know, if you're in your actual exam, this might be later on in the exam, and maybe things that brought up these topics were in earlier parts of the exam. So you may be able to use the exam against itself. Sometimes that happens too, figuring out those details. That might help as you go through the details of this too. So try to look at each one of those, throw out the ones you won't get. Now, my questions, by the way, that we do in the study group, I tend to do questions with 5 answers. On your exam, most of the questions you'll get will have 4 answers. So it may be a little bit easier. But I guess that's good. We're giving you extra things to sort out in our study group. And maybe that will help you as you go through this too. Let's see how you answered this one. The question again, which of the following would best describe malware that resides on a user's computer and proxies all incoming and outgoing traffic? Is it a DOS, a man in the browser, a replay attack, spoofing, or phishing? 60% of you say it's man in the browser. Is that a thing? We got a tie for second, replay attack and spoofing, with effectively 16% each. 4% said a denial of service. 2% say phishing. Well, this is one that really is a very specific kind of attack, isn't it? You've got malware that is proxying incoming and outgoing traffic, which means when you send information, it stops it, looks at it, modifies it, does something to it, then sends it on its way. It also stops the return bit of the conversation, looks at what's going on, modifies it, or does something along the way, and presents it to you. It effectively is in the middle of your conversation, making it man in the middle of your browser. That's what that is. It's man in the browser. It's effectively malware that is proxying all this communication that normally would just go straight to the end device and straight back. But no, the malware sits in the middle. And it really goes through and figures out the details of this. If you're ever in the process of trying to figure out how are they able to see all of this? I'm sending encrypted information. There's no way anyone would be able to see that encrypted information sent across the network. Well, that's true. So they don't sit on the network. They sit in your browser itself and be able to watch everything in between for all of this. Man in the browser is a very broad term that can also apply to things outside the browser, but malware that proxies, very commonly referred to as man in the browser. And the only choice here was man in the browser. You could probably broadly even call it a malware proxy malware if you wanted to, but that wasn't one of the choices, was it? This is one of the important things if you take nothing else away from this particular question. The question asks, which of the following would best describe this malware? And you may have questions that answers, you may not even see the answer yet. Oh, I know what that is. That's this kind of attack. Except you look at the answers and that's not in there. It's not one of the choices. Well, they didn't give you that choice, but you still have to find out which of the following 5 options would best describe it. And that's the real key, is understanding how I could best apply these particular answers to this particular problem. Man in the browser is how you would do that. If somebody is proxying and they're sitting on your computer, doesn't matter how you're encrypting across the network, they get to see everything. A very common form of this malware just waits for you to log into your bank, and then behind the scenes, they begin performing their own transactions. And then let's do our own file transfer. Let's do our own money transfer and send this information through. Very useful to have that there. It's a man in the middle, but he's stuck in the middle of your computer, if you want to think of it that way, and have all of those things popping up. That is challenging. It's not something you want to have happen to you, but the man in the browser, very useful for the bad guys to be able to get around the problem of encrypted data. So this is not something you would want to have on your computer at all. That would be your man in the browser. That is the right answer. Let's look at these other answers you had. 16% of you said a replay attack. A replay attack doesn't commonly reside on a user's computer, and it doesn't commonly proxy anything. A replay attack is actually replaying things that you sent over the network originally. And if you were encrypting data, you can't really resend encrypted data. That doesn't work. It's one of the benefits for having encrypted data. So replay attack would not fit into this. How about spoofing? Spoofing is one where a device or malware or a process is pretending to be something it is not. And in some cases, pretending to be someone else. Well, that's not a proxy. That truly is someone who is looking like they're using the same MAC address or same IP address or something very similar to this. So that's one where not really would be the right one either. Spoofing would not be the best answer in the list of available things that is there. We've got 4% that said a denial of service. No service was denied here. In fact, the man in the browser wants your service to work so that he can see you logging into your bank. So we would not be denying service here. We'd be encouraging service. Is there an encouraging of service attack? That's what this is. And lastly, phishing. Phishing is some type of process that's getting you to give up some kind of personal information. And in this particular case, that's not what this malware is doing. It's sitting on your computer and proxying traffic. That is the actual answer up here. The 61% of you, man in the browser. That's the best description of what that happens to be. So very useful to have that and working through those details. Man in the browser is indeed the right answer in having those pieces. A replay attack, by the way, does not modify traffic, does not necessarily modify traffic. It certainly does not proxy. And a proxy is not the same thing as playing information later. Proxy is real time as it's going by. So I would not fit a replay attack into that proxy category at all. That is not what a replay is really there for. The replay can take place whether you're on the network or not. It's not proxying anything for you. In fact, they could take it somewhere else and run it. Doesn't even have to be on your network anymore. So that I would not necessarily fit a replay attack into that category of malware on a user's computer. That is proxying. That's a triple combination there that's very unique, and man in the browser is the one that fits best here. Let's do another question. We got time. We can fit more in. I've been talking so much. So let's do this question that says, a security administrator would like to create a graphical map of the local workstations and servers. Which of the following tools would be the best choice for this task? Would it be a vulnerability scanner, a steganography utility, a data sanitization tool, an exploitation framework, and a network scanner? And I have to say these again. A security administrator would like to create a graphical map of the local workstations and servers. Which of the following tools would be the best choice for this task? Would it be a vulnerability scanner, a steganography utility, a data sanitization tool, an exploitation framework, and a network scanner? And she sells seashells by the seashore. Hopefully you are able to get the right answer from the list of those things. If you do know the right answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock it in, and you'll be able to figure out the details on this one as well. Please no hints in the chat room. Please no answers in the chat room. We'll figure out the details of that. There's a lot of $5 words in the middle of that one. So hopefully you'll be able to break that down and figure those all out, even if you did not have to say them. Figure out the details. This is one I think that could be useful. Maybe this tool, in fact, I have used a tool very similar to this in the past. Maybe you have as well, to be able to do this. If you're someone who's interested in sort of capturing and having this data available, this is a good tool to be able to use. Be familiar with it. I think that's one that might work for a lot of us. We had a number of you have answered this one. You've locked it in. So let's see how we did on this one. Security administrator would like to create a graphical map of the local workstations and servers. Which of the following tools would be the best choice for this task? A vulnerability scanner, a steganography utility, a data sanitization tool, exploitation framework, or network scanner. 80% of you say network scanner is the right choice. 10% of you, barely double digits, say that it is a steganography utility, and then single digits for all the others. Now, if you've ever used a network scanner like Nmap, well, you know it almost fits this particular description. It's not a graphical map, though. So the network scanner like Nmap gives you more of a text-based breakdown of what's on the network. It's not graphical at all, although it's very useful. You can pick a range of IP addresses, go scan it, see what devices are on the network. It almost fits perfectly, except this one was a graphical map. Well, as it turns out, Nmap also includes a graphical front end to these very powerful command line functions, and it's called ZenMap. It is included with the Nmap distribution. And so now you get effectively the same thing at the command line, but in more of a graphical, easy-to-view form. And this is available in all of the distributions of Nmap. You can load it up in your Linux or your Mac OS or your Windows or whatever you're running Nmap on and be able to use it. There's other scanners out there, of course. Many people say they use other scanners that they say are better than Nmap, and I'd say they're lying to you. They are not better than Nmap. People who say that they're using a scanner that's better than Nmap are someone who just hasn't spent enough time on Nmap. I don't think there's much use of anything else. When you learn Nmap, you suddenly have control of the world and being able to scan with. It is an amazing tool to be able to use. And if you're someone who's trying to figure out, I want to get into security, I need to pick one tool that I could really understand the details of, Nmap is a great one to use for this. And it's a great tool, but not only for the graphical front end, I think the text-based front end probably one of the most functional things you will ever use. That is the right answer. A network scanner is the right answer on this one. We do have some people that answered steganography utility. Steganography is when you hide data within something else. So hiding data within a picture, hiding data within an audio file. That is steganography. That is not creating a graphical map of local workstations and servers. So that would not be the right answer. A vulnerability scanner will certainly scan devices and be able to tell you if those devices have a known vulnerability on them, but it may not, and very often does not, create a graphical map of local workstations and servers. It's interesting, though, that some vulnerability scanners include the use of Nmap in the back end. So even some vulnerability scanners use Nmap to be able to map out the network. The vulnerability scanner isn't doing it. Nmap is doing it. We have an exploitation framework. 6% said that. But an exploitation framework is one that actively tries to exploit these vulnerabilities that have been found. So things like Metasploit, for example, is a very popular and well-known exploitation framework. It does not create a graphical map of the local workstations and servers, or certainly would not be the best choice for doing that. In fact, I've also seen Nmap used in the back end of Metasploit. So all these tools, they understand the power of Nmap. And then a data sanitization tool is one that can wipe data from the face of this earth. Not really one that fits best as a graphical map of the local workstations and servers. The only choice here, the best choice here, is indeed E, a network scanner. That is the best choice. Well done with that. 80% of you got that one right. So true. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I want to fit in one more. I think we got time for one more question, don't we? Before we do that, however, if you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, you have to follow these instructions or you will not receive the credit. So make sure you do this. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There is a Contact Us link. Click on that link. It will ask you for your name, your email address. Make sure the email addresses are right, or I won't be able to send this back to you. See how it works? And then a subject line. And in that subject line, if you could put, this is the July 2020 Security Plus Study Group. And then in the body of the message on a single line, all by itself, with nothing else on the line, this is the only thing that would be on that line, is the words network scanner. And then in the rest of the body of the message, you can put anything you'd like. I do read through all of these. So you're more than welcome to put anything else in there that you would care to. I'm perfectly okay with that. Feel free to look through that entire list of things. You can send that on to me. It takes me about a week to turn these around, by the way. but I am able to get them back to you. And I'll send you an email that certifies you must have watched this, and then I attach to that email a digital signature so that people can verify that this really did come from me. So we're using some of that security plus knowledge already by getting a digital signature in the email. So a lot of people send me a message like, what is this thing you attached? Well, it's just a digital signature. Do I have to use that? No, you don't. But if somebody required you to prove that it really did come from me, that's what that digital signature is for. Very useful to have that. Do all of that. Takes me about a week to turn these around. I send you back an email that has all of those, the continuing education unit certification on it. The email itself is the certification. You'll be able to read it. You'll see all of the details. Follow those instructions. More than happy to do that. Let's fit in one last question into, well, last question I'm going to ask of you. There'll be plenty of other questions you'll ask of me. We aren't anywhere near done yet. But here's the last question I have for you. It's a question that asks, a computer in a data center has been labeled as EAL4. Which of the following would best describe this system? Is it the computer receives patches every 4 days? Is it that the operating system meets a specific security baseline? Is it that the computer is only accessible during certain times of the day? Is it that the computer is not connected to the internet? Or is it the computer is running the 4th version of the system image? A computer in a data center has been labeled as EAL4. Which of the following would best describe this system? The computer receives patches every 4 days. The operating system meets a specific security baseline. The computer is only accessible during certain times of the day. The computer is not connected to the internet. And the computer is running the 4th version of the system image. If you think you know the answer, go to ProfessorMesser.com and lock in your answer. Should be a good one for you to lock in your answer. Have all the details there. Those of you in the chat room that were asking me what email address you're sending that CEU for, you were not listening to the instructions. So you will not be able to earn, I'm sorry, to earn all of those. You'll have to go back and listen on the replay to what the instructions were, because doing the part of the instructions is part of earning the CEU. That's how I know that people actually watch this, because they had those details there. So that's where you should go with this and figure out those details too. That's what that one's from. So really, it's one of the things that I like to do is give you those CEUs, but it does require you watch. It's my only way of verifying that you were able to watch this and breaking all of those things down. Very useful to have that. See how you do with this one. A computer in the data center has been labeled with EAL4. I notice a lot of you are Googling this one. No Googling. Stop Googling. You think I can't see you, but I can see. I can see you. You're Googling. Don't do that. All those details. EAL4. Ever figuring that out. A computer in the data center has been labeled as EAL4. Which of the following would best describe this system? Would it be the computer receives patches every 4 days? Would it be the operating system meets a specific security baseline? Would it be that the computer is only accessible during certain times of the day? Is it that the computer is not connected to the internet? Or is it this computer is running the 4th version of the system image? How did we do? 60% of you say that the operating system meets a specific security baseline. 26% of you say this computer is running the 4th version of the system image. And then single digits for the computer is not connected to the internet, the computer is only accessible during certain times of the day, or the computer receives patches every 4 days. So this is one where hopefully the 60% of you were familiar with the evaluation assurance level. And for those of you familiar, you're probably in some way connected to the federal government, or you cheated by asking Google for this one. Or maybe you did know it, or maybe it's a guess and you got it right. There's different levels of this EAL. You may hear it referred to as common criteria. That's another term they like to use, maybe easier to say than an EAL, which does not fall right off the tongue, does it? To have those details. An EAL, an evaluation assurance level, There's 7 levels, EAL1 through EAL7. It's a way of qualifying whether you can trust this operating system. Is it secure? What things have been done in this operating system to make sure that it maintains that level of security? That's what EAL is, which means that 60% of you, 61% that said the operating system meets a specific security baseline. That's what that means. Everything else in this list I just made up. So your computer receives patches every 4 days. Okay, that's not what that's not the 4 in EAL4. The same thing, this computer is running the 4th version of the system image. Again, I just kind of took the number 4 and said, what could that mean? And I made that one up. The computer is only accessible during certain times of the day. That would be that you are using maybe the same internet provider that I am. And the last one is the computer not connected to the internet. Well, what good is it then? So all of those are, I guess, somewhat reasonable security things, but they did not describe EAL4. They did not describe the evaluation assurance level. So therefore, those would not be the right answers. The only answer that makes any sense based on EAL is indeed your answer B. 61% of you answered the operating system meets a specific security baseline. That is the right answer to have all of those things there. Hopefully that's one you're familiar with. All of the questions we went through today come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. The objectives have everything in the list of things you need to know. It's all in this objective list. People ask me all the time, what do I really need to know for the Security Plus exam? And I say, you need to know everything that's listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. So professormesser.com/objectives is where you want to go to be able to find that. So if you're trying to figure out where is EAL4 from, what video is that in, you can go right to the objective, search for EAL4, see that it's in that section. Which section was it, by the way? Let's go back in my list. I'm going to have you go back with me. I don't want to go through all these. So we'll have a look in a moment. I'll tell you which one it is. But you should get your own copy, professormesser.com/objectives. Get all of those things that are there. My next Security Plus study group, we do one of these every month. August the 19th. Can you believe we have one coming up? August is the next one. That's next month. We're already in the second half of the year. Can't believe it. There's also other study groups that we will do before that. On the 4th and the 6th are my A+ study groups. On the 12th is a Network Plus study group. And on the 19th is the Security Plus study group. You can always find when the next event is going to be, because you might be watching this on a replay, and it's well after August the 19th. But you can check the calendar at professormesser.com/calendar. You know exactly when the next event is going to be. Well, even though we've stopped the part where I ask you the questions, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to take questions from the chat room. We'll take questions from the phone lines. It'll be the after show. Stick around for that in just a moment. In the meantime, don't forget about our Security Plus questions on Twitter and on Instagram. And of course, our Security Plus videos on YouTube. And of course, there will be new Security Plus videos coming out soon, someday. That will be the SY0-601. They will be coming out. I'm already working on them. So they've got to be coming out at some point. The way that you can always know when that's going to happen is to visit my YouTube channel and subscribe so that you will know exactly when I post those to the YouTube channel. Don't forget about the course notes and the practice exams, professormesser.com/securitycn, professormesser.com/securitype to have all of those available. And don't forget about the Amazon link as well. A great way to support the site without having to spend any money yourself, directly anyway, at professormesser.com/Amazon. Well, that brings us to the end of the first half. Stick around for the after show, and we will absolutely take questions from you. Thanks for being here. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Let's see if I can get things going. There we go. Now we got the right things. Hello, chat room. How long did I say the SY0-501 will be available before it becomes extinct? It will be around until July of 2021. That's what that is. No, there's no music. You'll notice there's no music on any of my videos. Have you ever noticed that? It's so true. No music at all. There's music on the podcasts. There's no music on the videos because of international copyright problems. That I used to have music on my videos, and every single one of those videos had constant problems. YouTube would pull it. It would have a copyright complaint. There would be some issue relating to the music. And this was music that I purchased from a third party that is specifically for people that want to use music without any type of a problem. I was not using copyrighted material. I was using properly licensed material to have that there, and still ran into problems. So at that point, I just stopped using music. So I guess hum to yourself. Make a little song in your head, and you'll be able to figure out those details of what's there. Let me connect in myself, if you would bear with me a moment, and I'll answer some of the questions you're asking about the SY0-601, because I have some of this ready to go. I need to get my Skype up. Let me call in to my own show, because this is a cloud-based system. Have this here.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I type in a special code thing here that says,
enter your 6-digit PIN.
I will do that if I remember what it is. I will type that in, and you say,
welcome, Professor Messer.
Well, thank you so much, nice lady. Thank you for welcoming me. So now this means that you are able to call in. You can call in on our toll-free line. That would be the wrong button, wouldn't it? There we go. It was over all of a sudden. You can call in on our toll-free line anywhere in the continental U.S. It's a free phone call, 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies, 855-785-7545. This is also, being a toll-free number, something you can call in from anywhere in the world for free using Skype, because Skype does not require any Skype minutes to be able to call a toll-free number. I pick up the tab, put a +1 at the beginning, so it's +1. 855-785-7545 will get you there. You can call in, and the phone lines are full already. So you can always just keep calling, and you'll get a busy signal. A busy signal is the sound you get when a phone line is full, where you can't connect anymore. We've gotten sort of not used to hearing busy signals anymore. That's what that is. There was a question earlier about the SY0-601 and those differences. I've got a video that you can go out to YouTube and watch right now that details everything. The name of the video is Why You Shouldn't Wait for the New SY0-601 Security Plus exam. And one of the biggest reasons why you should not wait, I'll show you on the view on my screen, which is not there, but here. There it is. So the SY0-501 has 778 objectives. The SY0-601 has 1,037 objectives. By the way, I count them. There's a whole story there about how I count them, but that's a pretty good representation of the number of objectives that are on this exam. What you notice from that is that the SY0-601, 1/3 larger, or 1/3 more things you need to know than the SY0-501. The SY0-501 is big already. The SY0-601, even bigger. And not just sort of bigger, significantly bigger. 33% bigger. And half of those objectives, roughly half of those objectives, are brand new. Half of the objectives were brought over from the 501, which is a big chunk of the 501, but only half of the exam are things that you already know if you took the 501. So that's why I tell people, if you are looking to get this Security Plus exam, that's why I mentioned maybe now would be a good time for this, to have that functionality, to have that certification in your pocket, to have this here. Now, the question people ask about that is, but wait, won't employers want me to have the 601 version of the certification versus the 501 version of the certification? And the good news is that there are no versions of the certification. There is no such a thing as a 601 version of the Security Plus and a 501 version of the Security Plus. There's only the Security Plus. If you pass the 501 exam, you get the Security Plus certification. If you pass the 601 exam, you get the Security Plus certification. It's exactly the same. There are no differences. Security Plus is Security Plus is Security Plus. It doesn't matter. It's just the same way that if you took the 401 exam 6 years ago and you passed it, you've been renewing your certifications all this time. you've never taken the Security Plus exam again, nor should you ever take the Security Plus exam again. So that's one of those benefits, I think, of knowing the timing and understanding what people are looking for, where you may be able to get the Security Plus exam done with what will undoubtedly be an easier version with the SY0-501. And as we sit here in July of 2020, you've got a year to study. I think on average, people take about 3 months to study. Some people take 3 weeks. Some people take 9 months to study. But a year's a pretty good ramp. So if you're working through that. So that's where I would focus too. If you're someone who's really focused on Security Plus, you want to get it right now, that's where I would focus. I would recommend you put your focus there as well. That's really going to help you as you go through this. And hopefully that gives you some perspective too of the exam, because there's a lot there that you would have to break through. Let's quickly go to the phone lines. I want to take the first call, and then we'll come back to some of the other questions that are in the chat room. Let me make sure here everything is ready to go with the phone lines, and we'll start with the 847 area code. Well, there's the B pillow caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I am from Illinois, and I had a hard time with this one, but I do have just one question for you.
Sure, fire away.
All right, so SSO single sign-on is a security technology that allows you to sign in once and be automatically trusted by the system, right?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
And then Kuberos, so then that's a technology that's used with SSO, right?
Kuberos is an authentication technology that does have the ability to act as a single sign-on function. Absolutely.
Okay. I think that's it. I'll try to study harder for the next group, and I'll see you next month.
I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. And in fact, if you've ever worked in a Windows environment where you've logged in the morning with your domain login, that's a Kuberos login. And you'll notice when you get logged into the network that you're able to access file shares, you're able to print to network printers, you're able to access other network services, other shares on different servers, and you're never asked to log in again. And you're never asked to log in again because Kuberos is a single sign-on functionality. So that's one of the benefits that Windows brings to the table. By implementing Kuberos, it's able to use that. And that's pretty powerful to have that there. Let me quickly, by the way, bring up a view of some of the things I want to have available in just a moment. To have these here, I want to go out and get some things ready to go from the ISC website. So let's go back to the phones quickly. Also, before we go to the phones in the chat room, is there a simple conversion for someone having previously done the SY0-401 to do a conversion test for the SY0-501? Well, if you've already completed the 401 and you passed it, I would think you would never want to take this exam again, and you should not have to. There are 65% of the exam is different, is brand new in the 501 compared to the 401. That's pretty significant difference. So I would not recommend doing that. There's many ways to upgrade your certification. Yeah, I guess if you really, really had to, taking the exam again would certainly upgrade it. But there's many much more easier ways to do it. In fact, have a look at CertMaster CE if you're someone who's taken the 401. CertMaster CE, if you still have your certification, it is still valid, will upgrade you to the 501 in just a few hours, and you'd be done. So that's very useful to have that there. Very quick, let's pop over to the phones again, to the 915 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Are you there?
Hello?
Oh, there you are. Hi. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Jesus from El Paso.
Thanks for calling. What's your question?
First time, long time. I had a question about, I guess, objectives, because the last question about the EAL. So it's not in any of my book, and does that mean that the book is bad?
I would say probably not the book is bad, but one of the challenges you have when dealing with all of these different standards that were things that are in the exam objectives, the exam objectives are just enormous. They are big. And sometimes books tend to go outside the scope of the objectives. Other books might not include every single objective that happens to be there. So you sometimes will find that. That's why I always tell people, always go back to the objectives. They will always tell you the things you need to know with all of those things that are there. The thing that I find in the objectives, the part of this that I mentioned and where this comes from is section 3.3. Let me see if I can bring up that list for those of you that are watching. Here are the exam objectives, section 3.3, and the part that talks about this is the part that is referring to trusted operating system. Does not specifically say EAL, but that's what they mean, because there is no other term for trusted operating system that the rest of us use in the information security world. I wouldn't say that there's no other term, but that is the most common use of that term. There's sort of a nod towards the folks in the Department of Defense and the U.S. federal government and their use and terminology behind a trusted operating system. And the only one you can really find a good, solid example of is, that's EAL. That's what that's referring to. So EAL4 is a very good example of a standard that is used to determine what a trusted operating system might be. So that's what that's from.
Gotcha. And so that just goes into how because I was been watching your videos and the frameworks, and also COBIT is not on the objectives, but you go over it in your course notes. So that's why it's how in depth do you go into each of these things?
It's a good question, because all of this content that I create, all of my videos, all of the course notes from the videos are all created prior to the exam really coming out, prior to us really having a lot of hands-on with what the exam is really talking to. So some of the things that are in your book, some of the things that you'll see in video courses, some of the things you'll see in Q&A and other study tools are best guesses behind how much CompTIA really wants you to know about that subject. And some of those are educated guesses based on what we know of the exam in the past. I, for instance, have done a video series on the 301, the 401, the 501, and now the 601. So this will be my fourth series of Security Plus videos. And I think I've figured out at this point how to interpret how the things that are in the exam objectives. And I do a pretty good job of that. Sometimes CompTIA wants a little more, sometimes they want a little less, but it's really a best guess based on the context of everything else that's around it and based on what they physically put in the exam objectives as a description of that. So sometimes we're taking a guess and we're right, and I think most of the time we're right. Sometimes CompTIA goes off on a tangent and all of us are trying to put a best guess to it. Sometimes it misses a little bit, but that's a pretty rare occasion. And one of the advantages I have is I can go back and update a video or change a video if I find that it's too far off the mark. It's hard to do that with a book. They have to just release an errata that you can download from the publisher's website. I'm a little spoiled that way, so I can just go in and update the video.
So that makes sense, yeah.
You do run into that. I appreciate the call. Best of luck.
Thank you.
That's whenever I start trying to figure that out, it's become a challenge. Some of the things on the exam objectives for 601, very obvious. Man in the middle. They go through phishing. They added smishing on the latest version. Okay, well, I know what that is, so we'll just add that to the list with the phishing and the smishing. We'll make them all fit together, and and it goes very nicely. There's some topics that are outside the scope. In fact, as a security professional, I look at some of the topics and go, wait a second, is that a thing? What is that? What is that? What is the detail of that? I kind of have to break down, what do they mean when they say this? Where did they get that from? And occasionally it's like the EAL. Oh, that's a thing for the federal government, because the federal government loves the Security Plus certification. So that's where those things came in when working with those. So in the chat room, a number of people talking through this. This is not really a Security Plus question, but since you're asking, what does an API do? We hear that term all the time. Oh, we're just writing to the API. Oh, that particular product provides an API for your convenience. And you're wondering, why is that convenient to me that there's an API? API is an application programming interface. This is, I know you asked quite a few times, so I thought I would answer it. An API, imagine you have this product. Let's take an example of one. I used to work with a firewall. I used to represent, I was the senior systems engineer for next generation firewall. And I would bring this firewall around to people and say, look at this amazing firewall. Let's plug it in. Look how great this is. Runs like a top, purrs like a kitten. How many of these would you like? And they have specific questions. I need this firewall to do these things. I need this firewall to find particular traffic and stop it. I need it to identify malware. I need to do URL filtering. I need it to work as this, as that. I need to integrate with a third-party authentication system. And then they say, and I want to be able to make a change to the configuration of this firewall using a script that we run in our data center. And that script identifies the thing. And I wanted to talk to the firewall and have the firewall understand my script and then react accordingly. Well, of course, as a firewall company, everybody has a different way of doing things. Everybody has different scripts. Everybody has different programs they use to automate things with. So the way that you integrate with those is you create a middleman. So the firewall's on one side, the script's on the other side, and then you have this thing in the middle called an application programming interface, which is a documented, standardized way to talk into the firewall and have the firewall talk out. And when you do that, that means anybody can write their scripts or their software or their orchestration or their programs to the standardized application programming interface and have it interact with this very complex firewall that's on the other side. Now, as long as we can update software on the firewall, we can change versions on the firewall, we can modify the way the firewall works, but the API sitting in the middle will make whatever modifications it needs to make to be able to talk properly on both sides of this. So that's what an API is. Windows has tons of APIs. Almost every product these days tries to have an API, and it's a big selling point because if you've got a set of scripts and you would like to automate, do some reporting, be able to communicate with that by not necessarily using the main console of that device and instead just have a program talk directly to it and have it talk directly back to you, that's pretty powerful. So that's why an API is a big deal. And if you're able to do some scripting, you become very, very good in using your Python scripts. You are familiar with doing some Perl. You've done some, maybe even some basic C or C++ programming. Then you can write directly to the API, and things are now, you can make it dance around, and the program is doing all of the work. Very powerful. And that's why we often tell people, learn how to script, learn your Python, understand how to write to these things. It can be very, very powerful and very, very useful. Back to the phones, 443. Hello, caller. Which name were you calling from?
Hello, Professor Messer. I'm from Maryland. My name's Joe.
Hey, Joe.
I got a unique question for you.
Oh, boy.
So, I took Net Plus last year. I passed. I'm taking Sec Plus tomorrow. Hopefully that's a pass. And I'm 16 years old. So I was wondering, what's some good, I kind of want to get some experience in the field, and I don't really know, how I would get some since I'm 16.
It's not really a problem necessarily for just 16. This is a problem for anybody who is in the industry who would like to get more knowledge and familiarity so that they can be a little more positioned better when they walk into an interview. And I have to say, this is probably one of the top questions I get on any of my study groups is, I'm out of school. I just got these certifications. I have different types of things that I bring to the table, but how can I get an IT job with none of this experience? And it's such a common question that literally yesterday I released a video entitled "How to Get a Job in IT with No Experience." Because it's so involved. And the fact that I wrote it all out, it took me a couple of weeks to really write down everything that really made sense. And It was 30 minutes long, and there's no buffer in there. There's no extra things in my list. It is a very involved, chock full of data kind of video that is exactly 30 minutes long. And it will go through what I call the 4 elements of the job hunt, which is really be great if you had a formal degree of some kind. And I explain what that is and why it's good and or why it's a disadvantage. You really would like to have some industry certifications. And again, I explain why those are important and why they may be a disadvantage. I explain that you need to have some type of practical experience, which is not necessarily the same as having a previous job in IT. And I explained to you what practical experience is, where you might be able to get some and where you may be able to do this yourself in your own home lab. And I give you some examples of what you might want to do in a home lab to get some of that experience. And lastly, I talk about the 4th element of this, which is personal connections, a personal network of people you already know in that organization. So I would highly recommend, if any of you watching are interested in where do I beef these things up? How do I best position myself for any job, really, whether you have experience or not? What are those 4 elements, and what should I do to make sure each one of those positions me the best when I walk in the door for the interview? I would recommend you watch that video. It's a long watch. It's 30 minutes long. I get it. Set it to 2x in YouTube. Watch it really quick. It's 15 minutes long if you do that. The link is on professormesser.com/YouTube. It's the last video I released literally yesterday. If you're watching this on a replay, I'll put it into Lori. Put this into the a link to that video in the notes of the video, please. See how easy that was? Isn't Lori great? Thank you, Lori.
Yeah.
She put it right in there. So that's what I would recommend doing, is going through that list. There's much more information in there than I could ever explain in the context of the Q&A that we're doing over the phone here.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Do you think, though, as like a 16-year-old, that I might have like any issues with I think I have connections, since my school does like cybersecurity club.
Great.
So I definitely have connections, and I can definitely have previous experience. But with like the formal job application, like formal degree, I mean, like, do you think I'd have any trouble as being like a 16-year-old still in high school? Do you think they'd kind of see like, oh, you're 16, you probably don't know as much? They kind of discriminate versus age.
Age is always an issue. You're either too young or too old. You have to be in this middle area to really fit the best. And there are people, I think, that do have a particular expectation based on age. However, the way that you present yourself to a prospective employer and what you bring to the table and emphasize for that employer are sometimes much more important than other elements that you may not have. For example, you may not have a 2-year or 4-year degree yet. That's probably in your future, but you don't have that yet. But you may be able to emphasize the certifications you have. You may be able to emphasize work that you've done already because you spend a couple hours a week making sure the computers down at this particular charity you work with are running perfectly. Maybe you've done some work in a home lab, and here's some things that you found when you started setting up Linux or setting up firewalls or setting up Windows, and been working with your own Active Directory infrastructure. And here are the people that you happen to know in that organization. So there's 4 elements. Even if one of those elements is some kind of lower on the totem pole, it's a lighter amount of element, maybe you can boost up the other elements to give you at least a little bit more of an advantage when you walk in the room.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the call. Have a look at that video. I think that's really going to help. I made the video for that reason. So many people were asking the question, and I sort of started adding up all of the different places you can go to get that information. And I just thought, can I put this all in one place? And that's what this video ended up being, was this one place that has all of the things that I could ever think of telling someone. They're in this video. And by the way, there's some really good comments in the listing as well. People who have gone through this situation where they haven't had experience, or they had more in this place or another. There's some really great comments in there. So I would absolutely recommend having you to go through that and figure out the details. Before we get into the other pieces of this, And I know if there's some folks on the phone have been holding for quite some time, but bear with me, please, because I promised this kind of in the beginnings of the study group. As I told you, you could dig in Windows. So I've brought up my Windows config, and you know it's my Windows config because Eve Online is on this. I really haven't been on Eve Online in quite some time. There's my BattleNet. So this is definitely my Windows mess around with machine. But I am on the ISC.org website. That's the Internet Systems Consortium website, ISC.org. If you go out there, there is let's just go to products pull down. I'm on the downloads page. There's a download link right there. But this is the website. They have the Bind 9, the Berkeley Internet Name Daemon, which is a DNS service. And you can run that DNS service in Windows. Now, we don't want to run a DNS service. We just want to run dig. So what I would recommend you do is you can install the tools for the service without actually installing the service. If you're in Windows, I would recommend installing the current stable version. There's the Bind 916. If I download here, is this this must be the Windows version of Bind 9. So let's just download it and see what could happen, right? Oh, and they ask you, yep, it's the Windows 64-bit. That's the one I want. If you're on Linux, you could run, get the Bind, but I'm going to get the Windows version of this, which happens to be, as I do this video, Bind 9.16.5 x64 for the 64-bit version of Windows. Yes, click it. And I'm assuming it will download this in the meantime. So as that's downloading, I'm going to unzip it in the background. We're going to come back to this, and I'll show you in the installation how you install just the dig part. There's some videos on YouTube I was watching that go well outside the scope of how you do this. It's very simple. You just run it, click the right things, and you're up and running. So in the meantime, though, we will absolutely, we're not talking about Linux. We're not talking about FreeBSD. It's for Windows people. All you Linux people in the chat room, we're not talking about you. Hi, how's that feel? We're doing Windows right now. The best operating system in the world. Now I'm just antagonizing people. I mean Mac OS, the best operating system in the world. I mean Linux, the best operating system in the world. In the meantime, let's go back to this caller, the best caller in the world. 703 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, I'm.
It's a nice try anyway. Give him credit for that. It was a benefit anyway, going through the details. Let's go to 719. That was like a 20-minute caller. 719 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Mari. I'm calling from Colorado.
Hi, Mari. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, I was curious about your performance-based questions. I just got finished doing the CompTIA. It was a 60-day free evaluation thing that they sent out to the academic people.
Okay.
And prior to that, I was gifted Clark's study material, which I did not really find that good. Okay. My main concern is when I did the CompTIA, the terminology on that was so much different than everything else I've seen.
Okay.
You know, compared to Clark's and some other stuff. And on the performance-based questions, they didn't give an explanation. And like on Clark's, I got like 91%. On the CompTIA, they only give you 6 chapters to do because it's a 60-day, pre-eval thing. The highest I got on the performance-based ones were like 37%, which I'm ashamed of. But there was no explanations given.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious about your material. I want to get it. Does that explain the performance-based more?
This is kind of an issue, I think, in the industry, really, is that there is such a wide gap of, I don't want to call it quality, but kind of content density in some of these tools or some of the things you study from out there. As it turns out, CompTIA, as some of you have kind of noticed, over the last year or so, they have been offering their own training materials. Up to that point, CompTIA did not publish their own training materials. They very much stayed out of the publishing business. But about a year ago, they decided to jump into it. They bought a bunch of companies and started using those materials with the CompTIA name on it and kind of shipping those things out. What you're seeing is probably the beginnings of all of this, is they've consolidated all these materials together and put the CompTIA name on it. But I would say that the specificity of those materials to the exam is probably not as direct as one would hope. I can say this because I'm not a CompTIA partner. I don't have any specific business relationship with CompTIA. I have talked with people at CompTIA before, and I know people that work there, and they're all very nice people to work with. So I have nothing bad to say about the organization at all, but I don't know that they've spent a lot of time having someone very knowledgeable go through that content and really make it something specific to the exam. I think there's other pieces of material out there that do a better job. But one of the reasons I wrote my book of practice exams is because I didn't think there were very good ones out there. There was very limited access to very good practice exams. And I wanted a practice exam that really tested you on the same difficulty and had the same style of questioning as the actual exam. And that's why I wrote that. So I can, in my book, I have 5 performance-based questions for each one of those exams. So there are 15 performance-based questions total in my book. All 15 of those have never been used before anywhere else. So you notice I do a performance-based question at the beginning of the study group every month. I have for years. It is not copied from any of those. So you won't see those questions also will never appear on anything else. They're only in that Q&A book. So that's what I would recommend is find a good book that does have that. I go through some of these, or at least the style of these, on my study groups. So you've seen, if you go back over the last year of study groups, I've done performance-based questions. I've done some matching questions. There have been some where you've had to put things in a particular order. I've one question I remember where there's a firewall and a network diagram, and you had to fill in the network firewall configuration settings. So those are very good examples, I think, of the style of question you get on the performance-based questions. If CompTIA tends to change that in the future, I will change my questions to match that. But at the moment, I think I've got a pretty good representation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mari. I appreciate the call. It's one of those challenges you have, though, is finding the right questions. I write every single one of my questions myself. I don't put this out for someone else to do. I don't have a group of writers. I don't send it to Fiverr and have them write questions. I just don't think that's quality. I prefer using, I know what a good question is because I've been writing, I don't know, thousands of questions now over the last number of years. So that's where that is. Another question in the chat room, this common question. What the heck mouse is this? This mouse is huge. This is my hand in the mouse. It goes all the way down here. It's an enormous mouse. This is a mouse from Hippus, Hippus, from the Netherlands. And it's literally called the shoe mouse. It's so big. It is an ergonomic mouse, but your whole hand goes on it. And as you move the mouse around, I know it's hard to see that in that picture there, but because your whole hand is there, no part of your hand is hitting the table. It just kind of rests on it. Oh, it's just so comfortable. I recently got, for those of you that are into ergonomic mice, did I put it up here? I moved it. I got the new Logitech ergonomic mouse, not even close to being as good as this. This is the best ergonomic mouse for me because I've got these enormous paws. I've got these, you do not want me to be a brain surgeon. That would just be bad for everybody, but they're just enormous hands. So I'm able to really work forever, all day long with that mouse. I did get the new Logitech wireless ergonomic keyboard and I really like it. It's not perfect, but the keys are really nice. I used to use the Microsoft ergonomic keyboard. I've never liked the Microsoft ergonomic keyboards keys. They have that plasticky bubble piece down underneath. These keys are more chiclety, more like the Apple keys, like the good Apple keyboard. So that gives you the summary anyway of that's your keyboard and mouse update of the month for those. That's what that is. Back to the phones. I'm going to try something on my screen here. We're going to try to see if I can find the right piece to install Dig. I think I've got it. But we'll go through this and see if I'm able to get this thing going. In the meantime, we're going to go back to the phones, to the 443 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Mr. Professor. How are you?
I am so good. Thank you for calling. What can we do for you?
Hey, I'm from Maryland, and I have some question for you because I just graduated from the university, and I got my master in information system and in concentration in cybersecurity.
Nice.
And in 2 months, I didn't get any job, and people just asked me to have a certificate, cybersecurity certification, everything.
Okay.
And I used to watch your video to do my homework every time. And today I bought your bundle, your Succeed bundle.
Well, thank you.
I think it's 99, the one, yeah. So I saw you, but I was following the video right now, and I saw you were talking about the objective, and you say it's very important. And I couldn't get the objective on the bundle I get because I got CompTIA audio, video study,
Right.
and the exam hack, practice exam, and security plus course notes. So I don't know if I get everything. And after that one, I have one question. What to do in my home, since I'm home now, looking for a job, what to do in the home lab to get experience so I can, looking for another job. And if you have another, advices you can give to me.
I do indeed. So first, let's talk about the objectives. And you do not get the objectives downloaded from my website because the objectives are a CompTIA. It's a PDF provided by CompTIA. And I am not, from a copyright perspective, I can't distribute their products, or I would prefer not distributing their PDF. That's theirs to distribute. But I do have a link to their website. You can either go to Google and type in CompTIA exam objectives, or you can go to professormesser.com/objectives, and you'll get this page.
Okay.
And there's a link there that says, click here to be redirected to the exam objective page on the CompTIA website. The objectives are free. You don't have to pay for them. There's no money that you have to give them. They are detailed. Okay. There's extensive information inside of them. They are a great resource. I could type them all out separately and have them as a download on my Success Bundle, but I think it's sort of redundant given that they're already available in a pretty good format from the CompTIA website.
Okay.
The second question you ask is about labs, and it's a great question, especially for security professionals, and there are tons of options available for labs to be able to work. One of the most fun ones that I have worked with was I got a virtual machine and I set up pfSense, which is a firewall. It's a free firewall. And I found a full VM all ready to go that had pfSense integrated with Snort. Snort is an intrusion detection and intrusion prevention tool. And so it integrated and worked with the same menus inside of pfSense. So you could set it up to run. And if you set up the VM in the right way, or you even installed it on its own separate machine, you could use it as a firewall in your office or at your home and plug it into the internet and actually communicate back and forth to the internet that way. And if it was on the ISP side of things, you'd be able to get a lot of information from the logs of both pfSense and the logs of Snort where people are trying to attack. You're also browsing out to different sites. It's documenting the information that's going back and forth. Just tons of information. And as somebody who used to be a systems engineer for a firewall company, I knew every time we plugged in the firewall that there would be a number of stories that we could get from that. You're always going to see something you did not expect to see. You're always going to see foul flows of traffic going back and forth that you had no idea was happening over your network. We've had some, there would be meetings that I was in, we would plug it in, we would go off to lunch, we would come back, and we'd see things that were very inappropriate on these very corporate networks. And it was sometimes very awkward. Well, it started awkward. After a while, it just got to be normal. Like, yep, there's another one where you were able to see this. But what a great story. And at the end of the evaluation, we would come in and we'd kind of recap what the stories were that we found on this network. Well, we found this traffic. It turns out 3 people in shipping and receiving were running peer-to-peer software, and we found the person who had an entire stash of copyrighted files that was being served, and we did this, and we did this, and we did this. Those are stories that you can create yourself just by installing pfSense, installing Snort, and watching the traffic go by. Now, of course, just saying that's easy. You have to install Linux. You have to maybe set it up in a VM. You have to make sure the networking piece works properly. You have to have the connections going in and out the right way. It's not a simple thing to do, but boy, you learn a lot, and you also get a lot of great stories from that. You can do similar things with Nmap on your own network. Never scan somebody's network without permission, boys and girls. But you could do that on your own network and scan a lot of interesting things and have some great stories from that. There's so many different things on the security side where this really does become very useful. Not to mention, of course, having a knowledge of Linux, setting that up in a VM and getting that running, doing the same thing with Windows, getting those two to talk to each other, getting Active Directory set up, using authentication inside of Linux to authenticate against the Active Directory side, setting up Linux as an SSL VPN, setting up Linux to do IPsec VPN to another Linux machine on the other side or another service on the other side. We could just keep creating these labs. I just gave you like 20 labs. Just kind of these are things you can do in a VM on your desktop today, and there's many more. That's certainly not the limit. But the important thing from that is not only you doing it and becoming more familiar with how to do it, but I keep saying these to tell people, when there's a story, when you do it, you run into a problem. It doesn't work right. What happened? Make sure you document these things. For the people that are installing a 180-day evaluation of Windows Server, set it up to be a domain controller, set it up for Active Directory, and set it up so that you can have a machine belong to that network. And first thing you'll find is that you're not able to add a machine to the network because it's not set up properly in the DNS configuration. It's like one of the biggest #1 stumbling blocks you run into. Well, you set it up, it doesn't work, you fix the DNS part, and here's how you fix it, and suddenly it's working. That's a story. So when you're in the interview and the person interviewing you says, tell me about a problem you ran into and how you resolved it. That's a very common interview question. But if you don't have a practical experience or at least a industry experience in a job already, how are you supposed to have a problem that you solved? Well, I've got one because I set up a lab and I got plenty of problems. There are 99 things I could tell you about that went wrong with this. Let's start with the first. And they're great stories. And then you're explaining to a potential employer, here's technologies I'm familiar with. Here is a problem I had. Here's how I resolved it. And I could do the same thing for you, Mr. Employer. Those are powerful things to do in an interview, even if you don't have any practical industry experience.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. The last one question.
Sure.
As a new one who gets your bundle, your success bundle, what is the best practice you want me to start with? Because I'll start with the video with the malware. I know it's a little bit longer, but I start with the video. I don't know which is the best practice I have to do, because I want to take the test before end of August, and I want to do it quickly. But I have a more knowledge about what I'm seeing. But I want you to give me the best writing to get access of this process.
It's a combination of 4 things, I think, to do this. I think some people can get away with getting a good book, watching the entire video series, and doing some Q&A, and they're good to go. They've got everything they need. Sometimes people need a little more. They need some hands-on. We did a little bit of hands-on in the study group today when we worked with NS Lookup and Dig. Those aren't too difficult. There's not a ton of hands-on on the Security Plus. It's very generic hands-on that works on almost any operating system. So that's a very easy one to do. But if you've got a good book, you walk through these videos, you have the course notes, you've got all those Q&A sample practice exams now to go through because you have the Success Bundle, and you've got the, I also recommend make sure you read through and take advantage of that Exam Hacks book that you can only get with the Success Bundle, because that tells you when you take the exam, here are some exam strategies, separate from Security Plus. How do you hack the exam? How do you best take advantage of the things in the exam to give yourself the best score? There's some great tips in there as well, and things you could start doing now.
Yeah, I read that twice, and I keep reading that because it helped me a lot to have in mind how the thing is going through. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Professor.
Absolutely. Appreciate the call, and thanks for your support as well. It does go a long way. There is, okay, let me go back to the phone line. The Success Bundles from my website. You go to professormesser.com, and in the downloads for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, there's a link there to get the course notes, get the practice exams, get the videos. That takes you to the page with the Success Bundle, where everything is just bundled together. Okay, everything I've got, I just bundle it together into one thing. And that includes access. You get priority Q&A on the study groups that we're doing here. You get the Exam Hacks book. You get, if there's practice exams available in that test, you get the practice exams. You get the course notes. You get all the videos. You get all of the audio from all the videos. Everything I could think of, I've just thrown it in there. That's where it is. Back to the phones. 214 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. I hear you there. 214, are you there? Hi.
Hello, Professor.
Thank you for calling.
Okay, finally. Thank you. And thank you for the videos and the study groups. So I got the practice questions, but I haven't really gotten into it because I'm waiting to have studied the whole videos before going to the questions. But when I was going through the replay of some study groups, I saw a firewall performance question on LDAP.
Okay.
The question, the challenge I'm having is, I know there are some protocols that, both TCP and UDP. So if I'm faced with that kind of question, firewall, which one am I supposed to choose if it's a protocol that is both TCP and UDP?
There are not a lot of protocols out there, to be fair, that are both. And there are some, though. Take an example of DNS. DNS is a protocol that most of the time, 99% or 99.9% of what you will see with DNS traffic on your network is UDP traffic. It's most commonly seen as that. But there are certain situations and certain things that DNS can do. For example, very large queries or zone transfers, which are very unusual things to see on a network. But if DNS has to do any of those, it uses TCP to make that happen. So that's one of those cases where if you're setting up a firewall, you would put in the protocol that it would be TCP and UDP, or you would have two lines, one that would allow the TCP traffic, one that would allow the UDP traffic. Most firewalls these days will allow you to say TCP, UDP, or both on a single line of the firewall to have that there. There's not a lot of protocols like that, though. There are protocols that you will find people say use both TCP and UDP, but that's not entirely true either. There's very few examples where you would find a protocol that ends up using both of those. I think what a lot of people see is a chart on the internet somewhere that says that particular protocol has a reserve port for TCP and a reserve port for UDP, but in reality, we never use the TCP part of it, or in reality, we never use the UDP part of it. So it's one of those where it's nice to be able to know what those are. Unfortunately, you don't have to know that many protocols for the exam. If you look at, for Security Plus, you can probably look at the Network Plus list to be able to understand what those are. And if you're on Network Plus, you can see the list. On A Plus, there's also a list of protocols you need to know as well. And they almost are probably, I think all of them are either going to be UDP or TCP, not both. So you're not going to run into that situation very often.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate the call. Thanks for calling. It is important, though, to know this. People ask all the time, should I know TCP or whether protocol's TCP or UDP? You should, especially for Security Plus, because you might be setting up a firewall rule. But you need to know this anyway, just because you're an IT professional and you will run into this in the normal things. So before we go back to the phones, hold on, phone people. We're going to come back to you in just a moment. I'm going to see if I can get this to work. I've not done any testing with this. I've just sort of downloaded from the isc.org website. I went to the download link. We clicked on bind for Windows, and it's a compressed file, zip file, and I extracted it. All the extracted files are in a subdirectory here under downloads. There's the bind subdirectory, and there's a file in there called bind install. Now, hopefully I'm doing this right. So we're going to click bind install, and I'm going to, oh, these are not uncompressed. This is not everything that's compressed. So let's go back to this. I'm going to right mouse click. We're going to extract all to that bind folder. Sorry for making you sit through that. Of course, you're going to extract it. Thankfully, it's very small. So there's your bind install. We're going to double click on bind install. I'm going to try to anyway. There we go. Now, Windows 10 will tell you, wait a second, this came from the evil internet and you should not be running this. This would be awful. We're going to click more info, though, and run it anyway because we trust the source that the bind install came from. We're going to believe that this is completely valid to use. Now, this is the bind 9 installer. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the Berkeley Internet Name Daemon. This is the DNS service. We don't want to run DNS service on our computer. DNS service is what we're trying to access that's over the internet. The Quad 9 or the Google 8.8.8.8, that's a service. We don't want to run the service on our computer, but you'll notice as part of the installations installing the program files ISC bind 9, there's an option here to just install the tools only. That's what we want, is tools only. And obviously we don't need automatic startup, but that probably doesn't matter if you're choosing tools only, but I'm a stickler. Keep config files after uninstall, whatever. That sounds fine to me. But tools only is the important part of this. Only install the tools. And then click the install button. And we'll hope for the best. Not really done this before. Looks like it has a Microsoft Visual C++ redistributable. Yep, let's install. It's going to send that redistributable out. Yes, please make changes. It's hard to read and kind of do this all at the same time. And as it's going through that process, we will come back to this in just a moment, and we'll go back to the callers. See how this works? Let's go to 973. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor.
Hello.
My name's Al. I had a question about taking a test online.
Sure.
Essentially. So I did... I see that you have to download the OnView testing. I guess it's an application that you download on your computer, and they monitor you via webcam and I guess the microphone on your laptop. Now, what do you recommend as far as the work, the area in your house, which area to kind of prep for the test? And I have a workstation and multiple monitors. I don't think I'm going to use my multi-monitor setup. I'm just going to grab my laptop and go into, a private area and take the test. I mean, have people reported any type of, experience with that?
Absolutely. And it is well documented on the Pearson VUE site, the exact kind of environment that you need to be working in. For example, you need to be in a room that can be closed off. You can't be like in an open family room that doesn't have any doors on it, that's an open area. It has to be a room that doors can be closed and you're in there by yourself. It is a test environment. It is a clean room. It is a pristine environment. and it has to be set up that way. You mentioned dual monitors. There's very specifically, they tell you you can't use dual monitors. And if you have multiple monitors, they have to be unplugged and turned off completely. So they make sure that that monitor is not even seen by the operating system and that it is not even used as part of what you are doing. They don't let people walk into the room. There's a very good example of a message somebody left on the CompTIA subreddit where they were taking the test. A family member walked into the room, immediately saw they were on the test, oops, turned around and walked out. The proctor said, nope, you just failed. It's done. And that was it. They have to pay again to take the exam again. Different proctors, they probably have kind of centralized on this now. Many people are saying they were able to wear their headphones, so that was not a problem. Other people are saying they weren't able to wear their headphones, and that was early on, so maybe they've standardized on that now, whether you can or not. But yes, the software, as soon as you load the software up and it's running, it's going to record every moment of you in this, both the audio and the video. Someone will be watching you. You can't see them, but they can type to you and text to you on the screen while you're taking the test. And you can see yourself in the video monitor and the video display that you have there, so you can see what they're seeing. They have you take pictures of the room, and they make sure you have nothing on your desk, that there's no writing materials around, there's no papers around, there's nothing else in the room. I guess they're hoping there's no recording systems that are recording anything. You can't talk during the exam. You can't mutter to yourself, Bob is a user and walks through. Well, you can't say that. They'll pop up a message, stop talking. Somebody was mentioning on today they were going to take their Network Plus, and there's some subnetting function, subnetting tasks that people will do where they use their fingers and they could subnet powers of 2 by using your fingers, except they don't like you doing that in front of the camera. They think you're sending a signal. So there have been people reporting they can't really, count on their fingers during the exam either. There is an electronic whiteboard you can pop up, and there is a link on the Pearson VUE website that allows you to test the whiteboard so you can at least get familiar with it. So you can type in notes. You can refer to those notes during the exam. You can have things listed there. But it's kind of a different and more stringent environment than going to an actual test center. And they have to be a little more stringent because this is not a test center. It's your house, and they have not set up your house to be ready for a test. They kind of have to make additional security controls because they don't have the level of control that they have in a testing center that you might go to in a different facility.
Right.
And that's a challenge. Some people are fine with that. Some people it has worked great. Some people are comfortable with it. They've gone through it. Other people have said portions of the exam, like the performance-based questions, did not react to them properly. Drag and drop wasn't working well. It hung in the middle of it. They had to reboot their computer. And even though it hung and they rebooted and had to go through all of this, the clock is ticking down. It doesn't stop the clock. One person was in the middle of their doing everything with their exam, and the proctor popped up a message and said, we don't have pictures of your testing area. You have to grab a phone, take pictures of the area, and send it to us right now. And the whole time the clock is ticking. I think it was a badly trained proctor myself. But after it's over, you hope it goes well, but if it doesn't go well, now you would have to go through an entire process with what apparently is a very corporate behemoth with plenty of red tape and nonsensical things you have to jump through just to be able to justify taking the exam again. Kind of a pain to do that. But other people, they've had a great experience. They got there early. The proctor was there early with them. The proctor provided them with everything they needed. It all worked exactly the way it was supposed to, and they got through the whole thing and they were done. So I guess your mileage may vary. They haven't worked out all the kinks yet. So just be patient, I guess, and be prepared if any of these things happen, and I think it probably will go fine.
Well, thank you for all the information. That was very useful. I know what to expect. I just got to find the area in my house condo that I can use to take the test. I don't know if a bedroom would be appropriate, but
Probably would, yeah.
Yeah, really? Okay.
Some people are
Yeah,
taking
I'll
it
probably do
in
that
their
then.
bathroom because that's the only room that they can lock, that they can be private, that nobody else can come in. It has a door. They can control it. There's no other computer equipment in there. There's no writing materials. They know they can make it ready to go for the exam. So maybe that's an option.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds good. Also, one more thing. I'm not gonna. Well, I was gonna just use my MacBook and activate the guest account to use as opposed to my regular desktop because my desktop is messy.
Perfectly reasonable. The one challenge you have on Mac OS is there's a lot of controls over what applications are able to do with mouse and keyboard. So you have to make sure that you run their setup program, that you run that OnView program before you even register for the exam to make sure that everything tests out properly. It has the right permissions. You're in the controller control settings for for allowing the program to have access to the mouse and the keyboard and if you have it has to have access to audio and video. So there's additional things you have to do in Mac OS to have that happen.
Understood. Thank you so much. You've answered my questions beyond, what I was expecting.
Well,
your videos are excellent. I love your videos.
I appreciate it. Best of luck with the exam.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too. It's one of those where you just have to be prepared. I think if somebody goes into this and they are not in a good place, where it is not the best possible scenario for them, then you could run into big problems with getting this to work. And that's not what you want to run into either. So hopefully that can kind of get you where you need to be with some of this. So hopefully that'll work with a lot of folks. We'll have to see if that's something they work out all the bugs. It would be nice to have that. Back to the phones real quick. Let's go to Canada, 647. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Professor. This is Tanveer.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
So I don't have any question for you. I just wanted to thank you for all the work that you are doing for the students, for your students all over the world. And one thing that I really want to convey to all those people who are watching the study group right now is the preparation is definitely incomplete without your practice exams.
Thank you.
They are tremendously helpful, and thank you so much for building them for us.
That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the call.
I'm also giving my exam probably next weekend. So, yeah, thank you so much for
Best of luck. Me and the chat room, we're sending you good vibes. It's going to go great.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's the real thing, is to make it really work out proper is we get the chat room involved. Let's go back to our bind install. My bind install failed, did not work. And I know why. And then I got it to work. So let's go through it again. I'm going to put this over here so we can do this. So before we just ran the bind install, but we're in Windows, right? Do you ever run an install in Windows just as the regular user? Of course you don't. What was I thinking? We right mouse click and we run as administrator. That's what you do in Windows to run all of this properly. Yes, I would like to run it as administrator. I'm going to choose tools only. And of course, I'm going to disconnect automatic startup. And it's going to put it in the target directory, et cetera. All these things will just keep default. That sounds fine. Install. Now, I did go through the process of installing this before, so I'm not going to uninstall. I'm just going to repair the Microsoft Visual C++ 2017 redistributable x64. Repair it. It goes pretty quick. Repairs it. Setup is successful. That sounds great. Bind installation completed successfully. But did it work? Here's the thing. We're going to do this. Back to our command. Let me bring up a CMD, which is our command prompt in Windows. And we type dig. And wait a second. I typed dig and it said dig is not recognized as an internal or external command, operable program, or batch file. Well, why not? It's installed. And I know it's installed because if we do a cd /program files /ISC by 9, I just hit tab complete on both of those. In that directory, there's a bin directory. And if we go into the bin directory, inside there is a dig.exe. So if I did a dig on www.professormesser.com, look, we got dig in Windows, everybody. There it is. That's where it is. Now, that's kind of a pain, though, to have to go into that directory just to run dig. So what you want to do is set up a path to that directory, program files ISC by 9 bin, so that it will work properly no matter where you are. So where is that? Under the system? Under control panel system? I'm having to now remember my courses. So let's go to control panel. Now it's a test. I haven't done this in a while. Control panel. I'm going to go into system. Isn't that where it is? And under advanced system settings. Is that the one I want? I bet it is. And in here, I've got all kinds of things. Is it under the user? Oh, it's environment variables right there. What am I talking about? Under system properties, there are environment variables. That's the one we want. And you have all these user variables. The one we want is the path variable, which lists out all of the directories that Windows will look in to find the thing that you're typing in at the command prompt. So in the path, I can edit that path, and it brings up this big old path. The path names, we can just create a new one. This is kind of nice to have it here. Do I just want to edit? Let's browse the path. That's so much easier. Under my machine, be this PC. Under my program files, so it'd be C:, program files, ISC by 9 bin. That's one I want. And let me zoom out of here. That's the one I want. Did it put it into the list? Okay, it did. So there, I could have just typed it in, I guess. And there's my new environment variable. Yes, that's the one I wanted. Now it's part of my path. I'm assuming that it's in there. Okay. We can't really see it because it's there. But let's try it out. We'll click OK and click OK. I hope I don't have to log out again and do this. So let's close out the command line. Let's go back down to the command line piece. Isn't this fun? All on the fly. Let's go to CMD and let's type dig. And dig by itself without any path works great. Let's do the example we did today. Dig www.example.com. And boom, I've got dig in Windows, everybody. How about that? Boom. I'm digging it. I know that. I've always gone through and edited the path myself and text and blah, blah, blah. But I want to try it out. Because if you're going to break something, live on the stream is the best place to break it, I assure you. So there you go. Now you've got dig. You have to run it as an admin, install just the tools, then add it as a path. Why it doesn't add it as a path as part of the install? Come on, ISC. Really? So there you go. And you can watch this afterwards. This is boot camp in a virtual machine. By the way, for those of you following along, I run Mac OS on this machine. So for those of you that have watched my studio before, everything that we're doing in front of me is what you are seeing. This is an iMac Pro with a separate monitor. So it's a dual monitor iMac Pro. And normally I'm running Mac OS. In fact, right now, for everything you've been seeing so far, we've been running Mac OS as the primary operating system. There's the tools on the bottom, all the things you need, Photoshop, all of what I'm running right now is Parallels Desktop, and I'll explain why in a moment. A Discord is down here, and of course, all the links to all the games. So all of that is there to have those pieces. Very useful to have that. But also on this list of things, I'm running boot camp on this machine. So I have a separate partition. I could reboot this computer and start it up as a Windows computer. It would be Windows running as the primary operating system. And it runs great that way. But I also have Parallels Desktop as a virtual machine hypervisor in Mac OS. And one of the things you can do in Parallels is tell it to use your boot camp partition in this VM mode. So if you don't want to reboot into boot camp, you just tell Parallels, start up boot camp as a VM right here on my Mac OS screen, which is what I did for you. So there you go. having it all there. So if you're running into problems with dig, run it as install and check your path. And remember, your path goes into the program files ISC by 9 bin directory for your path. Make sure that it's got the right path on it, and you'll do fine. Let's go back to the phones. Let me click some things here so I can see you and you can see me. And we'll go to 720. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. It makes a loud beeping noise when you hear me come on the line. Hey, caller. Are you there? Caller. Oh, you know what? Didn't hit the phone line right. It's not responding to me. There it is.
Yeah.
Hi, caller. Sorry to leave you hanging there.
No worries.
Appreciate the call. What's your question?
Yes, I had actually not a question. I have a problem accessing the book, the course note, and the practice exam. So I was actually trying to get the book, but I was directed to a PDF. Is there a way I can get the hardcover copies?
There certainly is. A lot of people don't realize this. I talk about my course notes and I talk about my practice exams, but both the course notes and the practice exams are available as physical books as well. I, of course, will sell the PDFs to you, and they're a little less expensive because I don't have to print them and send them out and all of that kind of thing. But some people like to have a physical book, and I get it because the physical book does have some advantages. It's you can take it with you. You can read it anywhere. You don't need a computer or other things. It's a full-size book with all the same. It's exactly the same content. There's no difference in content between the PDF and the physical book. But it's kind of nice to have that high-quality colored physical book. Or in the case of the practice exams, you've got the practice exams all written up in the book as well. And that's why I put those QR codes in there, because people can't click on this. They have to use their phones to get the QR codes there. So the question the caller was saying was that you've got the PDF. Can you now get the physical books? Because you'll notice when you buy the physical book, you're buying both, really. You're buying the digital version, and I'm throwing in the physical version along with it. But I don't want you to pay twice. If you've already bought this book in digital form, just send me a note, send me an email, open up a help desk ticket on my website, or send me an email with the Contact Us link, and I will give you a coupon that will take off the amount you've already paid for this book in digital form, so you only have to pay the difference to get the physical form. That way, don't buy it twice. There's no reason to buy that twice. Let me give you the discount for what you've already spent, and then you just pay the difference for the physical book. And you can do that either way. It doesn't take me long to turn that around and get that coupon back to you if that's something you would like. More than happy to do it.
So how much is the physical copy?
Yeah, absolutely. And then once you go through that, I give you a link. I send you instructions. It takes you right to a page where you can buy the physical book. The coupon is added to it so that you don't have to pay that extra part. You put in your shipping information, and then it goes into the process. It's all automatic from there.
Yes, I haven't purchased the book yet, but I was in the process of getting one, but then I was directed to the PDF, so I just need a physical copy.
Gotcha. If that's the case and you don't have either of those yet, on the Professor Messer website, I'll show you where the link is because I kind of have it at the bottom, but it's easy to miss. If you come to my website, I'm going to put this on the screen for those of you that are watching. Come to the website and let's look at Security Plus. I'm going to click on Security Plus Course Notes. It's going to bring up on the Security Plus Course Notes page the Success Bundle information. In the Success Bundle, I break out for you all the prices for the digital products. So what I'm going to show you is that the digital products are listed and what you can buy, including the course notes, the practice exams, the audio course, the Success Bundle. Just underneath it, though, is a button that says, looking for a physical edition? Click here. But it's this little gray bar on the bottom. It's easy to miss. So if you click on the physical edition, click here, it will take you to a different screen that will show you just the digital edition costs or physical edition costs of this so that you can buy the physical versions as well. The price difference between the two, not dramatic, but it is more expensive for the physical because we're printing a book. We're shipping that out to you. So the prices are a little bit different, but that's how you can start with just the physical books from the very beginning.
Okay, I see. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling, and thank you for your interest and support. Would not be able to do it without you. I appreciate that. So that's why the physical notes come with the digital ones for free. So that's why you're effectively buying the digital version, and then I'm kind of passing through the cost of the book to include that as a physical version. So that's why the pricing is a little bit more for the physical version, because it costs quite a bit of money to print and bind a color book. It effectively doubles the cost of the book, ironically. But you got the choice. But I figure if you're going to pay twice as much just because it's physical, that I would at least include the digital for free along with it. That's the idea behind it, so that you're getting both of them. It's a little bit of a bonus. And if you purchase the physical one, you're waiting for it to get delivered. Now, while you're waiting, you at least have a version of this you can look at, you can read through. That's one of those situations where there's all kinds of combinations of these things. If you get to a point where you're just not sure what you should be getting or what you've already bought or how that works, just send me a note. I got it all set up now. I can easily decipher it and send you the coupons and do all of those things. Very, very easy to have those pieces. So I see that you got the path stuff going for your dig. Dig is working now. I'm so glad to hear it. I'm kind of glad to hear it. I did not have dig running in that particular configuration of Windows in my boot camp. So now I've got dig running in my boot camp, and we should all have that in those cases. And if you're a Windows person, it's kind of nice to have dig available, especially if you're someone who goes back and forth between dig and Linux or dig and Mac OS, and or Windows and Linux and Windows and Mac OS. You like to have dig always in every single one of those. It's kind of nice to have the consistency and have those capabilities. And Troy in the chat room, dig's working on Linux. Good to hear. Good to hear. Of course, it's working on Linux. Hey, my dig's working great, Mac OS. Yes, it is. Why can't the Windows folks have that just ready to go? Well, I guess there's a lot of problems there. Gotta have all those pieces available, all of those things set up. Always a challenge to have that. There was one other question I saw come by. I'm going to scroll up just a little bit to have this there. Oh, good point. Van in the chat room talking about, I was mentioning going to a test center and taking your test. But of course, there's going to be safety protocols in place for COVID. So it might be more of a pain to have that at the test center than at your home. I guess it's a balancing act, isn't it? To figure out which one of these is the best way to go and have the best choice for you. I would like to wait to go to a testing center, but I don't think I'd go to a testing center right now. But if I had to get a certification done, I guess I would do it online. That's one of those situations where you just have to kind of decide that's what's going to happen and go with it. Also in the chat, somebody was asking about microphones, what I'm using here, and all of the configuration. If you go out to the Professor Messer website, on the main page of professormesser.com, down at the bottom, there is a link for more information, and in there is the Professor Messer Studio, which effectively takes you to a page of professormesser.com/studio, and it lists out really the high level, at least, of everything we're running here in the studio for both mics, cameras, switchers, audio, the streaming server and what I'm running, all the different little things I have in here. I don't have for instance, I don't have the mouse and the keyboard on here, do I? No, I don't. But pretty much everything else is in this list. So you can get a feel for, oh, that's what he's using for this. That's what he's using for that. You get a pretty good understanding of what is in the studio and what I'm using for those pieces. It's sort of been an accumulation of things over time to have all of these things happen and up here, but it's running pretty well to have those there. So if you're in the chat room and asking what mouse and keyboard, you missed that part from earlier with what's the name of the company? It's the Hippus hand shoe mouse, literally called a hand shoe because it's as big as a shoe. And the keyboard is the brand new Logitech, or what they call themselves now, Logi. I forget the model. It's their newest It's their only newest wireless keyboard with the all of the different split keyboard. I guess, is it their only split keyboard now from Logitech? It might be. But that's what we're running, is their brand new split keyboard ergonomic piece to have those there. So that's another option. There's always something new going on. I'm always planning to add something new to the mix. I'm noticing I've got to swap a cable out. I've got to add another camera into this. There's always something. It's always a lot of fun. We never miss an opportunity to do something like that here. So if you got some suggestions, we'd be glad to hear that too. Well, we've come to the end of really, I want to say another hour, but turned out to be an hour and a half with our excursion into installing Dig in Windows, which all seemed to work out okay, I think. I think we managed to get things going. I appreciate you being here for the first hour. We did some great Q&A. That was nice to have you here. We also appreciate the questions in the second half where you're asking me questions from the chat room, your phone calls. We appreciate it every time. We thank you for being here. We really could not do this without you. It's a lot of fun, and we look forward to doing this every single month. Be sure to check the calendar for the next one at professormesser.com/calendar. Come on back. We got plenty of brand new questions every single month to go through, and we'll see how you do. We'll get you ready for your Security Plus exam. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks, everyone.